night, but they're officially back.
Denver did go 2 of 3 there, so the vibes are all gone.
What's up, guys? Welcome into the lounge for a special DNVR Nuggets trade deadline special edition of the show. We got a lot to talk about. The Nuggets already making 2 trades today. We'll see if anything else comes through over this next hour. We've got an hour to go up until the deadline. I'm Harrison Wind, of course, joined to my left by the face of the DNVR TikTok channel, Brendan Vogt.
Another Noah Vonleh stinker at the deadline. I just wish we had something to talk about, guys.
Oh, yeah, what a bummer.
Also joined by Eric Weedham.
Guys, I just turned on Woj alerts, Woj bombs, notifications. Let's go. Come on.
Just now?
What have you been doing?
You
for
missed
the last,
it, dude.
I'm just kidding.
Hour,
They've been on.
2 hours. Also joined by the superstar, Dev Johnson.
I mean, I was not even supposed to be here, and then there was some news that happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. Yeah. I'm coming down. I'm on the way. That's how it happened. Vibes are immaculate. They're immaculate.
Vibes are immaculate. I absolutely love it. Of course, the big news that broke, I don't even know what it was, an hour and a half ago or so, the Nuggets trading for Aaron Gordon. The package is Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first-round pick going to Orlando. Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark coming back to the Nuggets. This is a massive, massive, massive trade. Vote. What was your first reaction when this went down?
I mean, if you wanted a swing, this is your swing. This is the best chance at a high-impact defender. I know folks don't really see it offensively. Some folks are hoping for Barnes. But what you were hoping to address, Gordon is your best bet at directly addressing that need. It's an if. We'll talk about this plenty, guys. Far from a slam dunk. But if you were hoping to see them take a swing, in my opinion, this is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway, Eric?
I actually think this is a slam dunk. Like, I know that only 2 days ago I told Gordon to go to hell because I figured that he didn't seem like he wanted to play for the Nuggets. But, listen, I'm always protective of my heart. If people don't want me, I don't want them. But if Aaron Gordon, just on paper, looking at what he can provide to what we already have in a very potent offense, Nikola Jokic running the point, Michael Porter Jr. flanking down on one side, Jamal Murray on the other, Aaron Gordon being a very formidable presence down low, being able to play that dunker position and take on, the wings in this league that have size, the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the guys that always come up when you mention that the Nuggets are trying to make a run for a championship. Like, being a Nuggets fan, like, this day usually means, we're getting Devin Harris,
Roy Hibbert,
we're getting Roy Hibbert, we're getting and
Noah
it started off with the Javale McGee news, which we'll get into, which chilled me to my core because I was afraid that would be the only move made. But man, the Nuggets are a different team. Like, a page is officially turned on the Denver Nuggets. They're no longer just a punching bag here in Denver. They were lucky to sort of get to the Western Conference Finals. They're too timid to make a move. Tim Connolly really stepped up to the plate. The fact that the Orlando Magic are imploding and they're absolutely sending everybody off, and Tim was opportunistic enough to go and make the trade that needed to happen when it needed to happen. Like, I could not be more excited right now. I'm if I had to put it into 2 or 3 words, I would say let's go.
Dev, what was your first reaction?
I think that the losers' lounge was like a thing of the past.
It is a thing of the past.
This was a winners' lounge. And before I get started, I'll just go out and say that it's never easy to get rid of a player that's been like a pillar of your organization.
Sure.
So it's not that I'm happy about getting rid of any player, especially one that has had so many memories and has given his all to the organization and to the city and truly loved being a Denver Nugget and being part of this community. I'm not saying that that's the win. You have to just look at the overall feel. And like you guys were just saying, on these days, these are usually days that don't move the needle at all. This is not when you guys joke about Roy Hibbert and those type of players being part of it, that's really not a joke. Those are the type of players that the Nuggets get at this time. So for them to get a real player that can really make an impact, that's where the win comes into play. So at no point do we think that it's a great thing that Gary Harris is not a Nugget. You just have to look at the overall picture and know that the Nuggets are in a better space and a better situation. So salute Gary Harris. He was like a
Salute.
true. Yeah, he was a
Mr.
true
Nugget,
nugget.
baby.
Mr.
Yeah,
Nugget,
yeah,
the original Mr. Nugget.
Yeah, we
You'll always
gotta
have that.
we gotta have like a true send off at
Yeah.
some point in the show where we really talk about the guys that we're going at. I mean, right now we're on this. Right now this is the come up. Like this is the hype time. Like Aaron Gordon's hype. Like
I mean, it was a heartbreak. It really was a heartbreak. But at the same time, the Nuggets are better off. The wins are about to come in. They've already been a title contending team. They add a piece that really, I truly do think moves the bar. I think that it makes them better. And that's what everyone, like, that's what fans should want, is to have the best Nuggets team. And right now, they're a better team than they were yesterday.
And what Dev hit on is my biggest takeaway from this move. The Nuggets are all in. They're absolutely all in trying to win a championship
Love
this
it.
year. This is really one of the first moves that I can remember, maybe the only move that the Nuggets under Tim Connelly have really made that has signaled to me that, yes, we are all in trying to win a championship this season. Aaron Gordon gets you closer to a championship. The Nuggets, they got their guy today. Aaron Gordon was the biggest name available heading up to the trade deadline. They liked Aaron Gordon. They wanted Aaron Gordon. I was told going back like a week or 2 weeks ago that Aaron Gordon was very open to coming to Denver. He was very cool with potentially getting traded to the Nuggets. He was very open to coming to Denver, and the Nuggets went out and were aggressive in getting him. Yeah. So that's my biggest takeaway. The Nuggets are all in for a championship right now. They think there's an opening to win it this season. And really, for these next 2 years, the Nuggets, I think, have their top 4 players in place. And man, is it freaking exciting.
Yeah, does this signal a mindset change for Tim Connelly, who I think you rightfully pointed out last night? It's not his MO to deal a player like RJ Hampton. But at some point, the Nuggets have to get realistic about what the timeline is, right?
Yes.
They can't be the San Antonio Spurs, and they can't just keep the prospect chain rolling for 10 years. At some point, there's a tough decision to be made, and he made one today. May very well backfire, but there is a large camp of people who wanted to see them be aggressive. And I don't think there was a more aggressive move that was available today.
Yeah, we were talking about, the Nuggets are and have been under Tim Connelly the team that does not skip steps. Mm-hmm. This in my mind is not skipping a step. This is the next step.
Totally agree.
A consolidation trade is the next step. You build up all of the reservoir of assets, and at a certain point you cash them in to make. It's exactly what the Warriors did when they brought in Andre Iguodala. They stole him from us. This is our retribution from the universe. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. And,
yeah, can we read this off from Gordon here?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thanks so much for the emergency cast, fellas.
Of course, man. We wouldn't rather be anywhere else.
Thank you so much for the 21 Canadian dollars, Gordon.
More super chats to get to as well. You want to hit those?
Yeah, let's bring it on.
Sure. Super chat from Carlos Romero. With the inclusion of Aaron Gordon, JaVale McGee, where do y'all see Paul Millsap or Jermichael Green in the rotation? Seems like one has to be out of the rotation unless we go very big. Yeah, I think they could potentially both be in the rotation. We're going to get to this later in the show. We're actually going to build out the entire Nuggets rotation. So we will tell you coming up in a little. We're going to build it all out.
We already figured it all out. Don't worry.
We'll do it together.
We'll do it live at the same time.
Just has a hype chat, basically.
Let's go.
Hell yeah, Ava.
Ava.
Thanks for hanging out.
I knew
Hell
I knew I was in on this day when Ava added me on Twitter and said she was stoked about the McGee move. I was like, when Ava's in, I'm in, baby.
Yeah.
Vibes are good.
I feel that way. Although I've shown a couple potential T-shirts designs to Ava recently.
She's not feeling them.
She's been like pretty muted on it. So. You know what? Ava doesn't always have the best.
No, yeah, she tried to set me up about an hour ago, like tried to remind everyone about the Hartenstein girlfriend thing, and that's a setup. That is a setup. It was a weak moment for me, and I dropped the ball.
Yeah.
No.
What were you saying about Aaron Gordon?
So Aaron Gordon, when I told him to go to hell because he clearly was tanking his interview for the Nuggets, man, I don't know. Like, to me, for weeks leading up to this, it just felt like this was the prototypical player. This was the exact right piece for the Denver Nuggets, and it's a kismet that the Orlando Magic are falling to such disrepair at this exact moment in time. It's like we didn't make the move last year to just sort of like panic add because you're supposed to do that when you're moving to the playoffs. Like, this is the right move. Gary Harris has been a Nugget stalwart. He's been a member of the core. He's been Mr. Nugget. He's been my favorite player. He's made plays for the Nuggets that will always be remembered, and I will never, ever allow anyone to speak ill of my man Gary. But the truth of the matter is that he just cannot stay healthy.
Right.
And it's not a knock against him as a player. It's not a knock against him as a person. But like at a certain point, like we need to have bodies on the court. Like we can't. Our defense is such that we like absolutely need that. Somebody to contain at the perimeter, somebody to also be able to come in and help on weak side defense at the rim. Aaron Gordon absolutely checks both of those boxes. And for that reason alone, like outside of his offensive capabilities and what he can add, which I don't even care. I mean, we have the big three. We have the big three that each one of them can score 20 points a night, right?
Yeah.
Like if Aaron Gordon can score 13, 14 points a night and then just be formidable and just make people think twice about charging the lane, like win.
Now, pour a glass of cold water on it.
Here it comes.
There are legit concerns, and there are folks who didn't want to see this move made, and I think that logic is easy
Gary
to
Harris?
I think that logic is easy to trace. First of all, you need buy-in from a player that I think the general perspective maybe views himself as a little higher profile than he is. And then even if you get the buy-in, Morris tweeted this, sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, boss, there's a learning curve, right, for players going from a bad team to a good team, especially a player like Aaron Gordon. But more to the other point, this is the worst season ever, right? It's the shortest runway to try to catch up to that learning curve. So, these are real concerns. I just think it comes down to you weren't going to find a guy who's going to provide like, okay, we're more versatile. We can switch now, there's a little more rim protection even. I don't know what else they could have done that adds up to this defensive upside. And that's just what it boils down to.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned this D-line, just Gary Harris not being healthy and in the rotation right now. The Nuggets potentially picked up 2 rotation players, and they sent out 0 rotation players.
So true.
Because Gary Harris isn't in the rotation right now. He's hurt. Who knows when he's going to get healthy? So Denver could not be counting on Gary Harris, I think, like for anything over the rest of the season because you just don't know with him. But now they have Aaron Gordon, who is a very good defensive player, who's a more versatile defender than Gary Harris, who definitely makes Denver a much more effective defensive team in the playoffs. And, hey, like they don't know if they were going to get Gary Harris the rest of the season. They don't know how much they were going to get from him the rest of the season. And now you've got Aaron Gordon, who is just a toy for Nikola Jokic that he's going to be able to use on the offensive end. And defensively, it's going to be an enormous impact.
Is this what it feels like to be a Lakers fan?
It's actually Anthony Davis. It's kind of like a layer.
But like every new year when you get close to the trade deadline and then there's a big player out there and it like happens, you're like, what is this?
Oh, that's cool.
Is this what this feels like?
I think there's someone who might want to bully you guys.
Oh,
let's bring him on.
Can't wait
go,
to
dude.
hear how wrong we
There he
all are.
goes.
Here we go.
There he is from a tropical paradise, otherwise known as Florida. It's the big man himself. Adam, I think we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can.
Man, we
this is
can't hear
weird
you.
on this side of it.
Oh, wait, there we go. There you go. There you go. We can't hear you.
This is really strange being on this side of these interviews. Hey guys, what did I miss? Did I miss anything?
we got Javale McGee, bro. Let's go.
JaVale McGee, there it goes. That's the whole thing. Yep.
Bummer though, dude. They did not get Jordan McRae, so not an A+ day per se.
All right, give us your reaction, man. Give us your take. What was your first reaction when that trade went through?
I think everybody feels the same way. There's that sense of like you just jumped, you jumped into the pool off the high dive. So there's the butterflies. It feels like it was the right thing. It feels like the Nuggets are doing the thing they were supposed to do. It feels like a move in the right direction. You're excited, but you also feel sad. I mean, we've talked about Gary Harris and the struggles he's had and the fit and all this stuff, but he's also been such a great person to root for and staple of this team that it's just weird. It's a mixed feelings, but I think once all of the emotion settles down, it's going to feel very good.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we talked about that a couple minutes ago, but as a Nuggets fan, you're going to feel that a little piece of your heart is gone now that Gary's not here.
Yet, Adam, do you buy my take, my like ship of Theseus thing here, that without Gary, it's a different kind of era, a different team?
Google this.
I do. It's weird, like when you talk about eras and eons and epochs and all of this different things. Like it's still part of the larger era. It's the Jokic era. So as long as Jokic is here, it's the Jokic era. But Gary is a pretty big plank. The team has a different sail or something now. So it definitely has a different look to it. The ship.
Thanks for buying
I love
into
this
the metaphor.
extended metaphor.
Yeah,
By the way,
appreciate
I have the for the Luddites like me. The ship of Theseus is a thought experiment that raises the question: if an object had all of its components replaced, but remains fundamental, does it remain fundamentally the same object? Okay, go ahead.
It's really, he's more of it's a new narrator, if you will.
Yeah,
You guys can
that's the one.
Google that one.
Wind.
Yeah. So the package that the Nuggets gave up, Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first-round pick, I am still a little surprised that Tim Connelly gave up RJ Hampton. And I think it's a good decision that he did give up RJ Hampton. I think it's a very fair package that Denver gave up. But I'm not sure if this is the trade the Nuggets make last year or the year before. I wonder if just like this is the right time to finally take that step and give up like one of your prized young guys. Because I don't know if Tim Connelly makes this deal in years past, but to me it just seems like the right time to make this kind of trade.
Right time, right fit. You know, you go back and look, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Love, this summer, Drew Holiday, all of those guys are great players. I think comparable or better players even than Aaron Gordon. But were they players that filled the immediate need for the Nuggets? You know, there was a little bit of questions with it. Aaron Gordon is a guy that's like, the number one thing he brings, before we talk about skill, is he allows Michael Porter to be your power forward. So immediately he comes in and allows your best players, where you, in theory, to be at their best position and play their best role. And I think that was just so important. So, you know, it's a steep price. There's no question about it. But I do think it's a fair price. I don't think Denver overpaid for Aaron Gordon. And he is a guy that Denver sort of has 4 players now in their starting lineup that I think form the boundaries of their identity. You now know who the Nuggets are based on these 4 guys, and every other player going forward and even currently is judged by how well they fit around those 4 guys. Of course, Murray, Jokic, Michael Porter, and now Aaron Gordon.
Adam, you just spoke about Dwayne Wade, Kevin Love, Jimmy Butler, other people that was actually like linked to the organization, but they didn't actually get. This time they actually get someone that other teams were like coveting and trying to go after, and they actually like finished the deal with it. Do you think that there's like a change of the tide, or do you just think that this was a one-off?
I think it was a one-off. I mean, Denver, when you're a team like Denver, you only have one bullet. I mean, Denver, maybe I see a lot of people saying, what about Lonzo next? Look, maybe, but I think almost certainly not. I think Denver's probably done dealing now.
Singer did tweet that, by the way, just so you know, that it
Yeah,
seems like the Nuggets are
I'm
going.
hearing it as well that Denver is probably not making any more moves. But it's just you only have one. You know, you build for years and years to acquire the assets, to acquire an identity, to figure out who you are, and then you get one move. That's just what happens when you're Denver. So this was their one move. Gordon will hope it works out. I think there's reason to expect that he is going to work out, or at least has a great chance to work out. And like I said, you now have 4 pieces that fit. With all 4 of them together, I think fit. You start to mess with what about Michael Porter off, Aaron Gordon at the 4? Okay, I think that fits. You know, what about Jamal Murray off? And you start playing with the different combinations, and you're like, yeah, I think you could build interesting lineups after all these combinations. So Denver, they have their work cut out in front of them, but I think you have to be excited. Honestly, you have to be optimistic. You have to be excited.
Oh,
This is a hype cast. We're fully excited. Denver was never able to pull the trigger, and they shouldn't have, frankly. Like, this was the right time.
Right.
This was the right move. Like, Denver has built up enough assets. They're not emptying out the war chest. This is not like the Nuggets went all in, and if it doesn't work, they have no recourse. They still have players in the pipeline. RJ Hampton is a bummer to lose, but like, RJ Hampton, in my mind, didn't necessarily have a defined role moving forward on the Denver Nuggets. We're a guard-heavy team. To be honest, like, every time that RJ Hampton would play, like, I would always say, I don't know exactly what RJ Hampton is good at, other than just being a basketball player and being hustling. Like, he's not a great shooter. It's not to dog on RJ Hampton. I'm just saying, like, I love the fact that Tim Connelly was measured, very Harrison-like his approach in years past. He didn't just make a move to make a move.
Yeah.
They waited, and like now, move to me makes absolute sense. And the time is right, and they pounced. And I listen. I'm a Tim Connelly stan, but this only cements that for me.
Yeah.
And Jamal Murray is a star. And if you go back 3 seasons, or if you go back to his 3rd season, he still was not a star player by any means. He wasn't even reliable. It wasn't until really last playoffs, but his 4th season where it was like, okay, now Denver has a 2-man game. They have this identity. If you look at RJ Hampton, I think Jamal Murray is like the best case scenario for him. Well, that means this year and 2 more years before he starts to knock on that door of that player. And by then you're talking about Jokic being up for a contract and all these other things. So I do think at some point you do have to say, all right, we got to move forward and we take a risk. Denver is low on assets. They were asset rich 365 days ago or whatever last year's trade deadline when they shipped out Vanderbilt, Wancho, Malik Beasley. They were asset rich. Now you're a little bit, you're average with assets, young players, picks, whatever, maybe even a little below that. But you have a 4-man group that really forms completes your identity, and now you just have to figure out what works around them and see if those guys mesh.
Yeah, I think that's okay because the Nuggets are moving into a new tier, a new stage.
So we all kind of thought
Next
it would
step.
be Barton, right, in this package. And it's Gary, and that changes things a lot. And I'm curious for your thoughts, Adam, on, assuming Barton's still in Denver, which by all counts, it looks like that's the case. How does that starting lineup work? What does this mean for Barton? And of course, all the way down.
Well, I think Barton probably makes sense as the starting shooting guard. I mean, he's been out of position a lot. I don't know if this is going to be where Denver goes. If you go with a Monte, I think that'll work great too. Monte's more of a low volume player, better ball handler, this or that. Barton maybe helps the bench as a scorer. But the one thing that's exciting about Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. in your front court, you have so much length and athleticism. And if you throw Will Barton on top of that, the athleticism's in question because he's still kind of coming back. But he's really long. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7", great wingspan. Aaron Gordon, tall, long, athletic. Michael Porter, obviously, sort of a unicorn in that way. You add 3 guys that have that much length. We haven't seen this with Jokic yet. We've seen Paul Millsap, who's notably unathletic and old, and we've seen Gallinari. We've seen these guys like Kenneth Faried, okay, Wilson Chandler, okay, a little bit. But Gordon and Michael Porter and now Will Barton, that's 3 slashers. 3 very athletic, long guys. And I kind of believe that there will be a sort of compounding factor to this where all of a sudden you give Jokic 3 Randy Mosses and he just gets to sit back in the pocket and throw bombs. How is that for a football metaphor, Dev? Am I doing well here?
You did it. You did that, man.
Last question I have for you, Adam, and I'm just going to add to the Hypecast here, hopefully. Does this move put the Nuggets in the Clippers and in the Lakers tier, in your opinion, or with this move, how much closer are they to that tier?
I mean, it can. The ceiling on this group is higher than the ceiling on the group that they had yesterday. I think that's just a fact.
Right.
Whether that works or not, there's just so many questions. Aaron Gordon, he was a lottery pick. He was hyped. He was paid like a star. I think in his mind, he's still a star. Part of this is, can he kind of buy in? Can he fit? Can he figure out how to play alongside Jokic? Maybe that's seamless. Maybe it's not. So the floor certainly becomes a little shaky. I mean, you saw the players reacting to the Gary Harris news. Gary Harris was their brother. Now you're bringing in a stranger to replace him. There's a lot of weirdness. But the ceiling for it, no question, it elevates him. And then, by the way, I want to take this because I know you didn't ask me about Javale McGee, which is we have to talk about, especially the guys like me that, Javale was a big part of the Nuggets, the Nuggets era that I was. Yep. I was like in college, or not quite college, but right after college, watching him play. Mm-hmm. We talked about Hartenstein. Look, Hartenstein, I think, gets a little bit of a bum rap because he's a goofy-looking player. He's silly. His bad moments look so bad. But I think the Hartenstein thing was the same as the RJ Hampton thing in a lot of ways. Is JaVale McGee, his ceiling is well established. You know exactly what he's giving you. Back up 10 minutes, block some shots, rebound, makes a couple good mistakes, whatever. But you know what you get. Hartenstein, Denver didn't know what they got from him. That's why he was in their lineup, out the lineup, this or that. So also just adding a guy that you don't have to play. But if you do play, pretty much what he's going to give you. There's no mystery to JaVale McGee at this point. Right. And so I think all of those things kind of factor in, and you say, okay, Denver knows exactly who they are. Now it's up to PJ Dozier, Will Barton, Monte Morris, JaMychal Green, Paul Miller. It's up to those guys to figure out where they fit into this equation. And if they do, I think Denver there's no reason they shouldn't be in that tier it's a race against time because the playoffs begin in some like 50 days, and they have 50 days to sort out exactly where everybody belongs in that equation.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall task for sure. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. Like, the Nuggets didn't have time to see what Isaiah Hartenstein might be able to give them over the rest of the season. They really didn't. Like, they needed something more.
Or they saw what
established.
they gave him. is really more to the point.
I mean, it does feel like it's been a lifetime since there was someone that could block a shot on this team. So,
well, what was that stat that the Nuggets have the worst inside defense?
Yeah, the worst restricted area defense in like NBA history.
Yeah, so that's not good, man.
Yeah,
that's not good.
All right, man. Any parting thoughts? We got to actually push you aside for another guest here in a couple
Adam,
minutes.
We
but,
got bigger fish.
As long as it's not Matt Moore, that's fine.
It is. That's exactly who it is. Yeah, yeah. Matt Moore, the action network.
all right, man. Good to see you.
Hey, Adam, bring me a present.
Oh, I will.
Oh man. Well, where do we want to go here next?
Well, I just want to say, surprisingly optimistic from the boss there, who I know, in addition to being a critical thinker in terms of wanting to sort of check himself, he's also a Debbie Downer, a real Eeyore sometimes, and today he's buying into the hype train. I love it.
I'm telling you, there's different times that he like shows different parts of him. He's on a vacation, so whatever he says out there, it's not what it really what it is. When he gets right back in that chair over there, he's gonna be like, we were just high on them. Like, no, never. I was actually never that high.
Yeah, no, you guys weren't listening. What it was.
He's like, win, lose, who cares? We got the vibes, we got the Suns, and this pina colada.
I love what Adam said about just the athleticism that the Nuggets have on this team right now, because they lost Jeremy Grant, who was very athletic, but I don't feel like he always knew how to use his athleticism. Aaron Gordon he's just like a more NBA type athlete who I think is going to be better. With his athleticism is going to be better in the Nugget system than Jeremy Grant's was.
My feeling on Jeremy Grant versus Aaron Gordon is that Jeremy Grant is much longer and taller than he should be for the role that he wants to play. Mm-hmm. Like, he wants to be a perimeter player. He wants to be a primary scorer. Aaron Gordon is a stretch four, but I think I think he understands that his power is around the rim.
Yeah, he's a playmaking four. Yeah.
Right. And so Jeremy Grant, like, all last year, we just were perplexed by the idea that he was this super athletic guy that never used his athleticism until the playoffs. And then it was like, oh, okay, this makes complete sense. And then, of course, he left. So, but the die has been cast for what it is that we are looking for out of that role. And hopefully Aaron Gordon could just slide right into it.
The best part is, like, when you bring up the Jeremy Grant and Aaron Gordon comparison, is the idea of Jeremy Grant was really good in those playoffs, and it was because he was using his athleticism to at least try to get boards. And I mean, I always like brought him down because of the ability to be so athletic and not even try to get rebounds or get any type of rebounds as a big man spot. But with Aaron Gordon, you get that. And it's not like he's just out there just hunting for rebounds, because they had Nikola Vukovic over there, over there.
Who cares?
And he's grabbing up the board. So it's like you're getting them into the flow of the offense. And now you come into a spot where you're also going to be able to just get it within the flow of the offense. But also, it's not all on you. I think that's the thing with like coming to the Nuggets is the pressure is not on you to do everything every single night. And that's also another thing that I think of when we keep on bringing up like how the cohesion to be and if he'll buy in once he gets here. I think when you look at the trade, you think about what was given up for you. That wasn't a superstar type trade to get you. It was not a blockbuster.
Not at all.
So I feel like you should level yourself in that regard already. Then you know that you're going into a spot that you're not the first best player. You're not the second best player. You're arguably the third, maybe not even that. So now you're the fourth guy on the peg. You know that you have to level yourself, and you're coming in to work hard. So I think that you understand that. Plus there's Malone, and I think he's the best at leveling the guy.
I think there's someone named Nikola Jokic who's really good at leveling people off and how they play and just letting them know when they're doing the wrong thing. Like playing with Jokic is, we said before, like getting into a PhD program, like an express basketball PhD program. And he'll let you know if you're in the wrong spot, if you're doing the wrong thing. He let Michael Porter Jr. know. He let a lot of, like, you can't just come in there and start gunning around Nikola Jokic. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get the ball.
Yeah, and he comes at a great spot too. Like there's time, like Adam said, there's 50 days to like figure it out. That's a lot of time because the Nuggets are playing like every other day. You're going to get time with your team to try to like see how you are. And there's going to be growing pains, especially like early on, but you also get to like see a fit. And then you go into the playoffs. And we already know that everyone takes like a notch up when it comes to the playoffs. Gordon has been in spots where they're going against teams that are just like too much for them, not a contending team. And he's going to go into a spot that is on the contending team, and he actually like will be part of that rotation. So I think the buy-in comes actually really, really early, and that's something to be optimistic about.
Hopefully, like he kind of sees one of the best things Jeremy Grant did for his value that allowed him to be this guy in Detroit and go and get this contract was actually taking the opposite approach. He was the guy Denver needed him to be, and he got to showcase value in the Western Conference Finals. So, let's just say hypothetically, which is a long ways away and we don't know this, even if Aaron Gordon was looking at this as like a short stop, there's something from him to gain, in theory here, from approaching this the right way and not trying to be the number one player on this team. We'll see. But I think it's an exciting proposition. I also want to address some people in the comments pointed out Jeremy Grant's a lot longer than Aaron Gordon. That is true. Counterpoint, Aaron Gordon a lot longer than Will Barton, and that's really what you're looking at here. Stout. And you're putting Gordon and Porter next to each other, which, for all of Porter's deficiencies, that is a lot of length and athleticism. And finally, some folks in here that I think are concerned about MPJ at the 4. Offensively, I don't think it's going to matter where MPJ plays. I agree with him that he's just spacing the floor either way. Adam made that great point about how he shoots better from the left wing. They can figure all that out. It's just about, I think he's that much more comfortable defensively at the 4. And Denver can just simply choose Gordon and MPJ, who guards who on a night-to-night matchup.
Yeah,
so
MPJ and Aaron Gordon at the 3-4, it's the same dynamic that we would have seen more if Jeremy Grant was here. With MPJ at the 3-4. Everything that we said that was going to be great about those two guys and how interchangeable they were at the 3-4, that is the same thing we're going to get with Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, you know what I feel like we're not talking about, and maybe you guys disagree, is that I when I look at Aaron Gordon, I see a young Paul Millsap. Like I see a stout player that plays around the rim, can stretch it out a little bit. I mean, it's not a 1-to-1, but like that body type and that comp like actually makes a lot of sense to me. It's like and we saw what Paul Millsap was able to do when he came in and still had some hops. The ability to sort of, when he wasn't as slow as he is right now, and that invigorated that squad. That like really brought the defensive prowess up 1,000,000%. It like helped out Nikola Jokic so much, and in Aaron Gordon, I mean, Jeremy Grant much longer, but much easier to move, and like he's not nearly as stout as Aaron Gordon. That was the one thing I was really taken by when we watched him just the other night. It's just like he's a really thick guy. Yeah.
There
with 2 C's.
There is a ton of versatility and upside in Gordon defensively. A ton.
And we've got our next guest lined up.
Cool. We got our guy Matt Moore backstage
go.
here, bringing him on. There he is,
Matt,
the man himself. Great to see you,
Guys,
Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Fellas, how y'all doing?
We're doing great. The vibes are back after that loss last night. The vibes have returned, and that's really all we're about on this show.
we're a vibe-based program. I don't know if you knew that, Matt.
Vibe-based program supporting the vibe economy.
Kind of true.
Matt, my first question for you: did it seem like this trade was going to happen the second that the Celtics did that Evan Fournier deal? Because when that trade happened, I know I saw you tweet that the Celtics were still in the running for Gordon at that point, but it just seemed like it was going to be unlikely. And that's when I at least started thinking, okay, like the Nuggets really might have something here with Gordon. When did the trade seem like it was like really heading down the runway, I guess, for you?
So, that happened and I immediately started checking in with people being like, so it's done, right? Like you got it. Like you're done. You're done. And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, okay, is Boston out? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, are you in the lead? And they're like, we might be. And I'm, at that point, I just start throwing things and drinking heavily. I think
Wait,
for
are you
me,
drunk
a
right
lot
now?
of it, not yet. I think for me, a lot of it, it really was the momentum was heading towards it. And I could tell the more that various Nuggets sources get more tight-lipped about something, the closer it is to being done, because they don't want to jinx it. Like, they don't want to say like it's done, because they've done that before. They're like, we got it. Oh, we didn't get him. So the more that when they started to kind of like choke up on the reins, I could tell that they were really close to the end. And then obviously they finally made the deal that they've been working on for such a long time.
What do you think about the package that they ultimately gave up? Because I think it's a really fair deal for Gordon, Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first-round pick. I know that Tim Connelly wasn't thrilled, or I can't imagine he was thrilled to give up RJ Hampton, because that's a guy he really liked. What'd you just think of the package that they ultimately settled on?
So there's a couple ways to look at this. There's always investor value versus market value. The market value is extremely low, and everyone else I've talked to in the league is like, how did they get him for this?
Wow.
How did they get Aaron
I
Gordon
wanna hear.
for this? The sense around the league was like, look, Gary Harris, you have to pay to get off of that contract, which that's way different, I think, than how he's perceived in Denver and by the front office, and especially by that locker room. Like, it was painful to have to give up Gary Harris. And then RJ is additionally, like, as of 2 days ago, that was a sticking point. That was one reason I thought Denver might not do the deal, was that they considered RJ Hampton to be the value of another first-round pick, and they did not want to give up the value of 2 firsts for Aaron Gordon. But when it came down to it, they were able to see that, for them, it was worth it. I think they talked to the coaching staff, and that had part of it. But I think for Orlando, they get some good pieces. I think this trade might look better for Orlando in a year, 2 years, rather than right now. Right now, it looks really bad for Orlando, but it also just shows you, like, one, when this is the market for him, you're not going to get great value anyway. And when your second best option, or first best option, as it was on Monday, is Danny Ainge and his notorious dealing tactics, you're in kind of a tough spot. So they got, I think, what can be considered good return for Gordon. And look, like, as excited as Nuggets fans are, and they should be, this is a big deal, and it helps them in a lot of ways. This deal is good conditionally. If Gordon buys in, if he wants to stay, and if, then this is a really great deal. And if it's not, I don't know that they gave up too much. And that's kind of the point, is the Nuggets didn't overextend themselves in the deal.
Yeah, I know that we cover the Nuggets, but just since you brought up Danny Ainge, with Boston getting their pick first, picking up Fournier, that opened the door for the Nuggets. Did Boston get the guy that they want, or did they just not think that Aaron Gordon could be got for what they got?
So my understanding is that the Magic held firm on, we want Marcus Smart and 2 first-rounders. And Boston said, no way, we're not going to do that. We'll give you 2 first-rounders and Tristan Thompson. And they said, okay, how about Marcus Smart and a first-rounder? And Boston, my understanding is that as things that typically go with Boston, there was an offer that the Magic were interested in, and they were engaged in those talks. And then all of a sudden you're talking to the Celtics, and you're not talking about the same thing that you were before. And they're just like, no, but really, what about, hear me out. What if we give you this box of Dunkin' Donuts and my free parking pass?
What about dugout seats to a Red Sox game? Like, could that be thrown in this package as well?
Right. Yeah, I would go for
exactly
some Dunk right now.
Yeah, so that's kind of what happened. And I think I have good reason to think that Boston was the front runner at the beginning of the week, and then Boston, for whatever reason, decided to reevaluate and try and get him for less, and that was when Denver moved into pole position.
I told you guys this would happen. I told you that Boston would not want to include Marcus Smart in this deal, and it would fizzle. I predicted that 2 nights ago.
You also told us that this deal wouldn't happen at all. So,
Matt, with regards to Gary Harris, is this from the Orlando end? Is this entirely to make the money work? Do they have any plans for Gary that you know of?
I think there's probably going to be a look to re-swap him, right? So I think that they'll probably, when he gets healthy, he'll probably play like a little bit for them just to show that he can play on the court. I wouldn't be surprised if he got moved this summer. They'll see if they can rehab his value somewhat. If not, going into the final year of his deal, there might be a buyout. Like, there's no long-term plan for Gary in Orlando right now, unless a lot of things magically fall into place. I think RJ there is, but Gary, I would expect to be on another team within the next calendar year.
Take care of our guy, Gary. That's my message to the Orlando.
I'm so sad. I'm like, especially like I covered that kid's rookie season and saw the absolute misery he was in under Brian Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
We all were.
How rough it was for him, and to see him turn into the player that he was there for a couple of years, and like how happy he was that the arena was filled, and like the game winner versus OKC, like it, this is the first one where I've really, unlike other players that have left and some have now returned, as it turns out, this is the first one where I'm really sad that, a guy's gone. I'm going to miss covering Gary Harris.
Yep.
Yeah,
Speaking of sad, the entire Nuggets fan base wanted Will Barton to be a part of this deal, and they want something to happen with Will Barton completely. Was there anything at all going for Will Barton?
Yeah, I mean, he was involved in a lot of talks. So if Sacramento had come through on Barnes, then Will's probably out the door. Like my understanding is that Sacramento liked Will more than Gary. Gary was involved in most of the talks, but Will was definitely on the table, and like there was kind of a sense of like you can choose between the two on the packages that you're looking at. So like Will was involved in talks, but ultimately I think they're pretty glad that they've kept him. I think he fits better, honestly, next to Gordon. Moving him to the 2, I think is going to help him a lot. Like that's just a better fit for him, and we'll see what happens from here on out. But yeah, I think that Will Barton was definitely almost traded, but ultimately not.
Yeah. Matt, I need to hear officially your feeling on Aaron Gordon in Denver.
If he buys in, if Aaron Gordon cares about winning, then this team can get the Lakers to a game 7, and then anything can happen. If he cares about winning, then he is going to see his numbers go up because he's going to get cuts and spot up shots and easy buckets and lots of stuff. And he's going to be widely regarded as like the glue that makes Denver's new nucleus go together. If he thinks what he has thought of himself in Orlando, which is a max level player, I am not kidding you. He thinks of himself as a max level player that is going to be like creating off the dribble and facing up and doing like being the hub of the offense. This can get a little awkward. So a lot of it's going to depend on what does Aaron Gordon want for his career. I've made this comparison, and this is the best one I can think of for those that are old enough to remember the Suns from the mid 2000s. Jokic is Nash, Murray is Amare, MPJ is actually Joe Johnson before he got dealt, because he was awesome with the Suns.
He was great.
And now Aaron Gordon can be Sean Marion, but he's got to commit to being Sean Marion. Sean Marion made a lot of money. Sean Marion made all NBA and all defensive teams. Sean Marion was a big time NBA name, but he wasn't a superstar, but he won a lot. And that to me is the decision that Gordon's got in front of him. And the Magic are hoping that it's a good fit and they'll be able to work something out with an extension and everything is going to be great. And this is the piece that puts them over the top.
Yeah. If Aaron Gordon can be the Andre Iguodala of those Warriors championship teams, that is the perfect role for him. But Aaron Gordon is 25. He still has like 10, 12 years left in the league. Andre Iguodala was clearly on the downside of his career. So, I mean, it's going to be up to Aaron Gordon. We had heard, Matt, I'm sure you heard the same thing, but we had heard that Gordon wanted to be in Denver. He was very open to coming to Denver. So I wonder how much of that was his ability to potentially fit into a role alongside who the Nuggets already have here, or how much of that was just, him wanting to be on a good team. I wonder.
I mean, I think that he sees himself as like part of the bigger offense. Like it's pretty clear that like watching the team play the other night, he got a sense for like, wow, look at the ball move, look at all this talent, look at how good they are. I think he sees himself as part of that. But the only thing is like there does have to be a hierarchy, and it's going to have to be Jokic and then Murray and then MPJ and then him. Mm-hmm. And that might be tough, and this creates tension points where it's like if it's MPJ and Gordon kind of fighting over who gets to have the leftovers, then that can create some tension. But if Gordon's just like, no, look, everybody's going to eat, and it's Jokic, so like everybody should eat, and this should be totally workable. If it's going to work with anybody, it should work with Nikola Jokic. But Gordon's going to have to commit himself to being the guy that they need and not necessarily the guy that he thinks he is.
So there were 2 trades today, Matt. Also, Denver acquires Javale McGee. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know he can be sort of reduced to like a class clown at times, especially with his prior sit in Denver. Is there like, just that lovable goofball type, but is there a real on the court impact here with this move for Denver?
Yes, the on-court stuff is pretty good. So he's a better defender than he was when he was here. He just learned how to defend in Golden State, and he learned how to be a better like NBA player in Golden State. And he was helpful for the Lakers in Golden State. And so I think that there's a lot of ways in which he's going to be a better player. It's also, hopefully, maybe now Jokic can sit down for like more than 4 seconds at a time. That'd be nice. It's just like being able to sit down for any length of time, I think would be helpful for him. I also think most notably, like, look, we saw the problems that Denver ran into versus the Lakers when they ran a center next to Davis. Like, for all the small ball talk, the big lineups were what gave Denver problems.
Yep.
And so now Denver can go, okay, we're gonna put JaVale on Anthony Davis, and Jokic is gonna face Drummond, and we're gonna go that way. Like, it's just a better matchup. These little things I think can help you, even if it's for only a few minutes at a time.
Right.
All right, Matt, final one I've got for you. 15 minutes left until the deadline. Are the Nuggets going to pull off the ultimate trade deadline coup and get Lonzo Ball as well, or are they done?
No, they're done. They're done. My understanding is that the only talks left on the table for the Pelicans, as of like the last time I checked about an hour ago, the only real suitor was Chicago, and Chicago was holding pretty firm on what they were going to offer. I don't know if they're going to get a deal. And the Pelicans, if they drop the offer, then sure, but there's been no indication that they're after anything else. The Nuggets have not outright said they're done, but they've indicated pretty strongly that they feel like, yeah, we're probably done. So I don't expect any more moves today.
Yeah, that's my sense as well.
What would you give us a grade for today? What does Tim Connolly receive for his efforts on this day, the trade deadline?
I think it's got to be an A, a solid A, not an A plus, but I think it's got to be an A. And the reason is, how many times have we been here where it's like they almost got a guy? Like,
all the time.
They were the Celtics of the West, right? Where it's like they almost got a guy. And it wasn't really their fault, because it's like you don't want to give up 5 first-rounders for Drew Holiday, right? And with Aaron Gordon, you gave up a first-rounder, RJ Hampton, and Gary Harris. Like, that's just pretty good return. They made the move, and they didn't just go quietly and say, like, no, we like our guys. At some point, you do have to make the upgrade. They think this is the one. There's no way to tell if it's going to work out, but you do have to take your shots when you're in the Nugget situation. They took a shot, and we'll see how it works out.
All right, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on. Incredible insight as always.
Incredible insight. Finally, someone with some
unparalleled insight.
Thanks, guys. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you tell Adam Myers to get off his ass and get back to work? Can you do that for me? Because I just would like that for him to quit sipping pina coladas and get back to work.
Do you have a choice of who should give him the news, like up here?
I'm going to vote you, Dev. I'm going to vote you.
Tough things have to be done.
All right.
Thanks,
see you, Matt.
Easy, Matt.
See you, Matt.
Oh, man. Thanks for
What a guy.
Matt, for coming on there. I think Matt hit on what the biggest takeaway is. Like, the Nuggets have been so close to making this deal before for, Dwayne Wade, for Drew Holiday, for Kevin Love. And every time, like, we've been very adamant it was not going to be the right call to make it at that time. Now for Aaron Gordon, this is the right call. This is the right guy. This is the right package. So I think Matt hit on that there.
Got a tweet to pull up.
Bring it.
Aaron Gordon has spoken?
The Denver Nuggets jeans on.
That's my
Denver
favorite
Nuggets.
video.
Denver Nuggets
Let's go
jeans.
Denver, baby.
Anybody that
man.
was a little cold on this deal, check out this GIF.
Yeah, it's a good start, dude. A contribution to meme culture.
Dude,
Like quickly too, and it has his face on it and
Yeah,
all
dude,
type
that's
of
good
stuff.
stuff.
I still can't believe I told Aaron Gordon to go to hell. I just can't get over myself.
You don't keep saying it in the future shows.
I just need to understand. I need him to understand the universe. I'm sorry. All right, listen. Mistakes were made.
Thomas has sent a bunch of these types of super chats in today. We're gonna do a whole segment breaking down lineups after this. I promise.
Yes. We
Well, we
will
see you,
get
Thomas
into the
Gordon.
lineups. We'll get into who we think will start, who we want to start. We will get into what we think the bench is going to be. I want to talk about Aaron Gordon a little bit more. You guys think we should? Because
Yes.
where Gordon, I think, is going to make the biggest difference for the Nuggets is on the defensive end of the floor. And look, the Nuggets lost who I think is probably their most impactful defender in Gary Harris.
Without Gary
Today.
Harris's defense
Yes.
single-handedly flipped that Jazz
Totally.
series.
When he came in Game 6, that series just totally changed. The Nuggets don't win that series without
I was
Gary
gonna say he
Harris.
didn't flip it. He won the
Yeah.
series for the
Well,
Nuggets.
That's what's interesting, guys. I mean, obviously, there's this caveat of, is Gary Harris going to play again this year? But, like, right off the bat, just on paper, Portland, Utah just got harder. But Lakers, Clippers, I think just got a little easier. Maybe moving a little bit closer to the center. But there's no doubt that if you are matched up with Portland and Utah, Gary is your best bet at guarding their studs.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. Somehow we're talking only about Barton in the chat. Like, what is wrong with you, chat? Like, you need to focus on what matters. And what matters is the additions of Aaron Gordon, JaVale McGee. We're talking about a big 3.5 here in Denver. Once you get a big 3, like that doesn't matter. Like you need to let it go.
Let's table the Will Barton talk
My
for
God.
He's
at
one
least
of
a
us.
day
He's
until
one of
tomorrow
us.
night. Yeah. Back to Aaron Gordon defensively. This is the guy who can be the Nuggets' primary matchup on Luka Doncic, who can be the Nuggets' primary matchup on Kawhi Leonard, on Paul George, on LeBron James. These are the types of guys that Aaron Gordon at 6'9", and like D-Line mentioned, he's built, he's thick. Like
He
this is an
man.
NBA guy who's
CC.
been through the battles before. This is Aaron Gordon automatically becomes the Nuggets' top defensive option that they can deploy against whoever that primary guy might be for their opponent. That's huge because Gary Harris, I think, in a lot of respects, was that guy before today. He wasn't healthy. The Nuggets didn't know what they were getting from him in the playoffs a couple months from now. They know what they're going to get from Aaron Gordon. Like, that is enormous for me.
Yeah, and if you just look back, when the Warriors were going on their like rampage of just beating everyone every single year, everybody adapted and tried to like put a lineup in to try to beat the top team, which was the Warriors. Then it became the Lakers. Like right now, it's the Lakers. So everybody's putting in their best option to try to defend the Lakers. But that also shows you where you are as a team. The Nuggets are as a team that they truly do believe that they have a championship aspiration. They know that they have to get through the Lakers or a team like Utah. And I feel like with today's move, they actually made a chance to try to at least combat that and try to like show that they're able to go against them. Yes, getting Aaron Gordon and get rid of Gary Harris, it does make it tough as far as there's still no answer on if a guard goes off. There's still not a defender for these type of guards. But right now you're looking at the top guys, and the Lakers are the top guys and the teams that you have to go after, as well as the Clippers. And right now I think that they're in a better suit to actually defend that.
Agreed, Dev. You just did the Adam thing where you make such a good point. The show's over now.
Did you? Nope, you covered that. Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he's just makes this Nuggets team so much more versatile defensively.
Dude, I'm so hyped.
Right.
This is the right move. Like,
It is.
I mean, nothing is promised. Sports are hard. You're not going to win the championship. No one ever wins. Only one team. This is like a time for pure, unadulterated hype. The Denver Nuggets got the guy that was coveted by other teams.
The timing on this, I was just about to start talking about some of the drawbacks.
I know. Like, this is not the time. Like, this is a moment of celebration for the Denver Nuggets because if nothing else, it just signifies that they are an actual contender in this league. Not just it's not Fraud City. It's not like, the team it's cute that they're involved. What's this Jokic guy all about? The team is like, they've been making smart moves for 5 years now. And like, we're now getting to the point where we can like really start to leverage all of these seeds that have been planted. We make that consolidation trade. This is the blueprint.
Well, the only thing is I don't think this was a consolidation trade. Like, there's still this issue. Zeke Naji, Paul Millsap, Jermichael Green, JaVale McGee. Like, who is in this rotation? Is Paul Millsap out? Because you want Porter, I think, at least closing, preferably also starting at power forward. I think you have the personnel to do this now. Mm-hmm. But what does this mean for, like, is Paul Millsap the odd man out of this rotation? I can't envision that. But there is still, in some respects, a logjam at power forward. And if Barton slides to 2, the backup small forward is still, like, unless you're going to mess around with Zeke Naji, it might still be PJ Dozier, and it might still be 3 point guard lineups off the bench. So it's not perfect, right? They didn't clean up the entire operation, but they did address the biggest need, and that's the top
and
thing.
not like what this addresses is the starting lineup. Like we're in a position now where we're like, should Paul Millsap be starting? Should Jermichael Green be starting? Like, who should be in at that 4? And everything else beyond that is like, okay, Paul Millsap is a consummate professional outside of being an accomplished magician, and has no, like, you can send him to the bench. He's not at a point in his career where like he needs his ego fed. Like we can sort of, like if J Mike doesn't got it, Paul Millsap can come in. Like we can stack, we can play big now off the bench. I mean, to me, this just gives us options with having no question now in the starting lineup, which is what you want.
And I'll say 2 things on yours as far as not being a consolidation. I don't think it's a consolidation, but it also does give off pieces that they've been trying to move for a while. Like Gary Harris, they've been wanting him like for a while. And for the first person that was going to actually give them something that they wanted, I feel like that was an easy decision for them. Then Hartenstein, like he has not been working out, and they needed someone that could come in and actually play and give Jokic minutes. And Jokic needs those minutes off of he doesn't need to be in the game that long, and he's like a minutes leader. Yeah. So now you have 2 guys for that. So you do you slow down your rotation as far as guard plays, because you already knew that the Nuggets had too many guards, and there was always this question of who do we go with. And now you do it with the big men, and like Eric is saying, back to his side, it's a positive. It's a good thing that you have so many. Malone could just throw a towel or whatever behind whoever grabs it. That's who's up next. Like that's how good it is for them. Like it doesn't matter. You don't have to think too much of we should have Zeke do this one. We could have Millsap do this one off of the bench. It doesn't matter. You're going to give good minutes at any time, and you're going to slow down the rotation anyway. So it becomes good.
These are the better problems to solve than oh my God, who guards like Brandon Ingram?
Exactly.
Exactly.
You're talking about the guys that need to beat the other guy's bench unit for a small percentage of the time in the playoffs. And frankly, when you even get to the playoffs, like a lot of these guys are going to be out of the rotation. The rotation is going to cut down to 9 guys, 8 guys. Like, so it doesn't matter, right? Like this is what's going to help us get to that next level. If it works out right, obviously you don't know. There's a lot. Life is chaos. Things are hard, but I mean, you got to like this. You just got to like what this presents from a potential standpoint.
Oh, totally. And I'm glad we're talking about building the rotation, because we're going to be doing that in a couple minutes here right after this trade deadline goes final. We've got 3 minutes left for more deals to come through.
The best part of these next 3 minutes is if nothing happens, the Nuggets are the people that you have to go after. They're going to win the deadline, and that never happens where the whole world is talking about one team, and it's the Nuggets. They'll be the team that came out with the most, and I think that's a great spot.
And I think, too, Dev just touched on this, and Matt touched on it, and this was actually my biggest takeaway from the Matt thing as well. I didn't think they were ever going to be able to get off this Gary Harris contract, and they didn't just get off of it. It was to make the money work in the number 1 deal they wanted. That's the A. That's the A right there.
This is the first time that Tim Connolly has made. The knock on him has always been that he can win the trades. I mean, he can win on drafts, he can win personnel, but he doesn't win on the phones. Like, he's not been a good on the phone kind of general manager. Like, he doesn't take advantage of other, he doesn't necessarily assert his way. Like Masai Ujiri is like the ultimate on the phone GM, where he can somehow start a conversation with you, and in the end, you've lost in ways that you couldn't even really fathom. But to me, this is the first time, and maybe it's Calvin Booth. I don't really know.
Say that.
I don't really know what the dynamic is. It is funny. We always talk about Tim Connolly being the general manager when, at point of fact, he is not the general manager.
Right, yeah.
He is the president of basketball operation. But perhaps Calvin Booth helped to get this along.
Yeah.
News is officially coming out that Lonzo is not being traded, staying in New Orleans.
Wow, so Lonzo Ball staying in New Orleans.
And the Pelicans are close to a deal to send J.J. Redick to Dallas Mavericks. So,
wow.
Guys, if this all stands, the Nuggets were the big splash team of the deadline.
Course.
I mean, by a mile.
The Nuggets went out and got the biggest guy, the biggest name, the biggest fish available, and brought him to Denver.
Unless Lowry moves. But has he moved? He hasn't moved yet, has he?
He hasn't moved. Victor Oladipo still on the Rockets as well. We got 1 minute left.
Oh my God.
Cleveland Cavs are buying out Andre Drummond. That was obviously going to happen. A final note on like Gary Harrison. I actually want to do like a whole Gary Harris appreciation segment later too, where actually you guys can't see. We're starting a vigil over off screen that you guys can't see. It's being built currently.
Kale's weeping.
Yeah,
he's uncontrollable.
But for the Nuggets to get off of Gary Harris's contract, I think is actually massive. Just with his injury risk,
that's what it comes down to.
We've seen it this year. Gary Harris is making $19 million this year, $20.5 million next year. That's guaranteed. Like if you can compare that with Will Barton's salary, Barton is making substantially less, and he has a player option for next year that he may pick up, may not pick up. Aaron Gordon is making $18 million this year, so less than Gary Harris. He's only making $16.5 million next year. His contract goes down next year.
Right.
So getting off of Gary Harris for Aaron Gordon, I think that's a massive, massive win for Tim Connolly.
Really, really quick, I just want to address everyone pointing out the Bulls, of course, got Vucevic, and that is a massive move. I just mean the Nuggets.
But like, what are the Bulls doing?
I'm just mean the Nuggets. Yeah, like for you look
do.
for contenders to make moves this time of year typically,
Totally.
and the Nuggets are the only fringe contender that did. So
Vucevic went from one mediocre team to another mediocre to slightly good team.
But also, good job, AK 47. Huh? How about
certainly
that?
Making
Andre
an impact.
Kirilenko?
Oh yeah, he's not AK. He's just AK. Just AK.
Arturas Karnisovas?
But no, seriously. I mean, I remember the Bulls bloggers. There was a Bull blogger post about how like awful the AK hire was before he even got started. It's looking pretty good. I know Bulls fans are excited. So, good on the old Denver Nugget.
All right, so I want to move into kind of predicting the rotation and the starting lineup, but we are going to make a lineup change on this show.
I want Andre. He could take my spot. Andre,
he's going to take your spot.
Get
okay.
over here, Andre.
All right, Andre Simone, the professor. Come on up here, sir.
Incredibles. I can't believe that wasn't on camera. Eric tripped.
The beauty is nobody can see what's actually going on set right now because Kale built that perfect graphic.
Well done, Kale. Well done.
Build a rotation. All right, we got Andre in the hot seat right now.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
It's going great.
Pretty eventful day, huh?
Andre, what's your take on this deal?
Well, for one, I think it's crazy. Last time I was on this set with you guys, Adam's in the bathroom because we think things have slowed down draft-wise. And the Nuggets, after already picking Zeke Naji, go and get RJ Hampton for a future first.
Wow.
And it's kind of crazy that you fast forward, 4 months,
right,
and RJ is the centerpiece for this trade. So I don't know. It's crazy, man. I have so many conflicting feelings. I get really excited about the kind of star power and just like the arsenal of shooting and one-on-one scores you've put around Jokic and Murray right now.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting to think what Facu can do with Javale McGee and Aaron Gordon or MPJ in some lineups. And, I'm really thankful that after losing Jeremy Grant, there were just some matchups where the Nuggets were lost. Mm-hmm. And now I think with Aaron Gordon, you have a guy who's at least a body you can throw at those fours. But then, I have concerns. I mean, the guard rotation's very unclear to me. The power forward rotation's very unclear to me.
Yeah. Well, let's talk it out. Let's
It's
talk it out. So I think there are definitely 4 of the 5 starting positions nailed down. I think 4 of the 5 starters we know for sure. Mm-hmm. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. I think those guys are for sure 4 of the starters. The 5th starter, I would hedge that it's Will Barton.
Yeah.
Because he's healthy right now, and Monte Morris was still out last game.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Malone has said before that in a alignment similar to this, that Monte Morris would be the starter. So I predict that it's going to be Will Barton when it's all said and done. But I don't want to necessarily lock it in Sharpie.
I think you can pencil it in.
Yeah,
I think that's the right
pencil
thing.
it in is probably the way to put it.
With Barton, at the 2, he is a secondary ball handler and playmaker. Yep. Not quite the same thing as that true floor general effect with Monte alongside Murray. But you still get that ball handler thing. And he's a little bit better defensively at the 2, a lot better defensively at the 2 as he makes more sense physically. A lot of it's up to him with effort, but in theory, this makes sense, and I think that this is the right lineup to pencil in.
And then also with Barton, I mean, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but as of late, they've been running through him. Like he's been the one that's bringing the ball up. He's been the primary ball handler,
Right.
even though they have Jamal Murray out there with Monte Morris not in the rotation. That's just what they've been going through. So I think that there's a lot at Barton being the two guard, but also being the guy that sets up Jamal Murray, because the reason that Monte's in there is just to allow to allow Jamal Murray to be off of the ball.
Right.
But if you have a guy in Barton who also gives you the size and a two-way split as well, then it makes it a lot easier for them. So I think that would be the easiest lineup. And from there, that's when you have to start trying to switch things up.
Yeah. Like that would have been part of the appeal with Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
If Denver was able to get him and slot him into that shooting guard spot.
Yeah.
Because Lonzo Ball is just like a souped up version of Monte Morris. He's like Monte,
correct, right.
but with an added 6 inches and even more length.
Yeah,
like he
for
can
sure.
make those same passes. He can run the team the same way and set up Jamal in that same way that Monte can. So that would have been the appeal there. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Barton in that starting lineup. Although, look, I think the Nuggets are still going to play Monte alongside Jamal a lot. They're going to still play
for sure.
Facu alongside Jamal a lot.
For sure.
But I think just to start games, I would lean with this 5. And even when it comes to like MPJ, Aaron Gordon at the 3-4, those are interchangeable.
Yes.
I would say Porter is actually more of a 3 and Gordon is more of a 4, though, at least in my opinion.
We've also got a super chat from Ray right now.
I mean,
that pertains to this question.
Just real quick if they're interchangeable, I just think it just comes down to who's guarding who. And you can sort of parse that out night to night. You know, I don't know if this is necessarily a conflict, although I, of course, concede that Gordon is more a 4 than a 3, just in traditional perspective.
Yeah. So Ray asks on the super chat, what do you guys think of starting PJ? Barton might be best leading the bench, and Monte also isn't the defender you might want next to Jamal. PJ, what do we think about PJ in the starting lineup potentially?
I think PJ is maybe the biggest winner that was currently on the roster out of this trade.
Why is that?
Just because now he's no doubt essential. With Gary off the roster, RJ off the roster, PJ is a no-brainer essential part of this rotation come playoff time.
I think that's
Torrey
a great
Craig's gone, like everything's pointing PJ.
Yeah. I mean, he's the next guy up, and he's smaller than Gordon.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there are some quicker point guards that are too quick for an Aaron Gordon.
Right.
And then now that's PJ Dozier because Gary Harris isn't here.
Yeah. I mean, his rise has been significant.
What about starting PJ? Where do you fall on that?
I don't think that's something I would never want to do that, honestly. I think that PJ, I mean, the idea is he's a gunner and he's going to score and he's going to shoot. He's not much of a facilitator or getting guys into like their sets, and you need them to get off to a hot start. You don't need just the scoring. And I think that's what he's relied on as the team, as the scorer, especially with that second unit and trying to get them going. Now maybe pushing other guys there, maybe that changes some things. But I think that in the playoffs, there will be a time that you will have to start PJ. I just don't think that that's the idea that you go with like right now. But I do think that he will start at times just because he has the defense. And like Andre was saying, he really does have a spot. He is going to be their defensive guy. He's actually the one that has to step up the most out of anybody that's on the team. Especially because he is the defensive idea and identity for the team that they really will need, especially in a grinded out game.
Yeah. So coming off the bench, Monte and Facu, like that's the Nuggets backup backcourt.
Yeah.
Still. And then do we want to plug in JaVale McGee at backup center? I kind of do.
I think you have to.
He's there.
Yeah.
He's there. I mean,
We haven't really talked about JaVale a ton.
They
but
tried it with Hartenstein. Like they really
Right.
did want him to be the backup. Like
Right.
this is not a situation like where Bobo like per se, where they really haven't given him the look. They gave Hartenstein like minutes, and they really did try to come in with the idea that this is our backup, and I think they will do that with JaVale. So I think that will be a good idea, and what they're going to have to do because he answers the voids that they have, and that's protecting the rim.
So we can slot JaVale in there under Jokic, and then Monte and Facu under Jamal and Barton. And then, like you said, Andre, I've got to think PJ
so crowded.
is a very valuable piece of this rotation still. And, maybe he even takes a step forward, losing that defensive element with Gary Harris. Yeah. I think PJ is locked into this thing as your backup 3, probably, right?
I think definitely.
Where else are the wings?
It'd be Zignaji.
Well, Denver also acquired another player in this Aaron Gordon deal by the name of Gary Clark, who,
oh man,
I don't know how many players are like closer to a Torrey Craig facsimile than Gary Clark, but there aren't many. So think kind of Torrey Craig a little bit with him, but now I think Dozier would be above him just because what we know about Dozier. So I would have him in there as backup small forward.
In a 9-man playoff rotation, does this leave both JaMychal Green and Paul Millsap out of the rotation?
JaMychal Green is not out of the rotation.
No.
Well, let's start regular season because I do think it'll be 10-man still. Yes. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This feels crazy. I think JaMychal Green makes more sense. But like the reason that feels crazy, can I envision Denver, Malone sitting Paul Millsap down? No. I can envision Millsap accepting it to some extent, to some degree, but that's a different question.
Man. It's going to be fascinating because you've got kind of 3 guys on your backup unit right now, 3 big men who you could all make a case deserve playing time in JaMychal Green, Paul Millsap, and JaVale McGee, right?
This is actually
there's
wild.
No getting around
like, to just look at it and to know that there are going to be guys that are not playing that they're players, like they're teams would like be able to have them and would want to have them, and they're not going to be playing. It's going to be a lot of not play coaches' decisions given out, and it's gonna like Malone has a very, very tough spot that he's going to have to make decisions, and it's going to have to switch every single time, and I think that it's just going to be a lot of tinkering. And when you bring a guy in, so they're going to tell JaVale, like, there's going to be a lot of nights that you're not playing. Like, just understand that. Same with JaMychal Green. If he doesn't find himself a rhythm and get back into the zone that we've seen to begin the year, I think that he's going to be, like, sitting a lot of the nights. Paul Millsap, he already understands that, and he embraces it. He's doing magic tricks. Like, so I just think that he doesn't care. He's just, like, here for the ride. But the other guys, I think, are really there, and then at times, Facu's going to have to sit.
Yeah. Dude, I think in a playoff rotation, he might be out, which is crazy. And I am in on Facu defender. But, you just sort of look at what they already have in Monte and what things sort of look like defensively in the playoffs, especially if Facu can't score. If he's going to get singled out on one end and be wide open and not be able to convert on the other. Now, I hold out hope that he can be a bigger impact player down the stretch because we've seen it. I'm still in on Facu, but as I try to predict what Michael Malone will do, he also loves PJ. So this is on the table. I mean, I think it'll probably be more like a 9.5 type of thing per matchup basis, as Deb was talking about. We'll see both of these guys maybe.
Yeah. And I think Facu and JaVale may be alternating. I'd love to see, AG and MPJ scattered, see AG gets some small 5 minutes with Facu and Monte. Like, I'd love the spacing and how they can run and really that'd be great. I'd love to see MPJ get a little 4 minutes off the bench like that. There's a lot of ways you can go about
No,
this.
for sure. And look, like it's always the case with the Nuggets. It's not like they're playing their starting 5 and then subbing in a hockey sub of Monte, Facu, Dozier, JaMychal Green, and JaVale McGee. They're going to mix and match. They're going to stagger. But I mean, having Aaron Gordon, I think, allows you to stagger even more because, he's just a guy you can plug and play on the starting unit, on the bench unit with different lineups and stuff. And, when it comes to like JaMychal Green, JaVale McGee, and Paul Millsap, I think there could be a lot of times when those 3 kind of rotate in at those backup power forward, backup center minutes. Yeah. Maybe there are nights when it's Paul Millsap at backup center, but the length that JaVale McGee provides, and we haven't even really talked about JaVale McGee yet, because we spent so much of this show talking about Aaron Gordon. Right. But JaVale McGee's length at backup center, Isaiah Hartenstein's a 7-footer. JaVale McGee's a 7-footer. JaVale McGee plays so much taller than Isaiah Hartenstein does, though. He's such a bigger shot blocking threat. He knows how to use his length in a way Isaiah Hartenstein did not. So the length that he provides is going to be just a huge bonus, I think, for Denver.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of, you want to be careful not to put too much stock in blocked shots, right? As like something that tells you there's value there. But to Wynn's point, we can literally point to the Nuggets being the worst team in the league at protecting the rim, the restricted area. Yep. And so a guy who has that prowess, it should in theory help. That's very easy to see on paper, at least.
So a couple trade deadline updates. Oladipo to the Heat and Kyle Lowry officially staying.
Kyle Lowry's staying.
I told you guys last night.
You did say that.
Lowry's staying. Oh, maybe we have details on this Oladipo trade.
Oladipo to the Heat. Okay.
For Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a draft swap.
That's it?
Wow.
That's not bad. But I still think if you're a Heat fan today, you are bummed out.
Yeah, I mean, the hope was Kyle Lowry, and all the talks was that the Heat just weren't able.
I would like that. We were just in the finals, and we get to keep Dragic. We get to keep, none.
Yeah.
And we added Oladipo. I think that's great, actually.
Yeah.
And you didn't give up much. Bradley hasn't played at all in, years now. Kelly Olynyk is just Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah. So we've got a 10-man rotation here, which is perfect for the regular season. They could even go maybe 11 at times with Paul Millsap. Other than Paul, because he is clearly the next guy that could be included in a rotation for me, nobody else is going to be really playing consistent minutes, I feel like.
No Zeke minutes?
Bol, Greg Whittington, Vlatko, Marcus Howard, Gary Clark, I don't see playing.
No, it's tough.
Zeke is the closest one who I think should maybe be playing, but it's tough, man. It's tough to find minutes for him.
Dre, is Zeke on the Nuggets timeline yet? Or is this just is this a next year thing?
Oh, man. Doesn't seem like it. I mean, we really got to see how JaVale McGee fits. Because I love, that all this gravitas has been added under the hoop. All of a sudden, teams really need to respect McGee and Aaron Gordon, in that dunker spot. But Zeke, you love that motor. You love the versatility defensively. You love his ability to stretch the court.
And he's a low mistake. We keep talking about, these guys know what their role is in Denver. Zeke you can't pay him to dribble right now. So
right. Yeah, you got to love that.
I mean, he's still a rookie, and he's still really young and still trying to learn his offense. And there's not other contenders that have a rookie in their rotation when it really matters.
Yeah,
and they just got better. He's out of the rotation. Did the Nuggets get a guy G Whittington? Did they just get him today?
Yeah, it was a deadline deal. The Nuggets traded Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and a protected second rounder.
It makes sense, man.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Quick super chat. What's the plan for Bol from you guys? What you're hearing?
Man, I think there was maybe a scenario where Bol was traded today. I think it maybe could have been interesting for him to just get an opportunity somewhere else because he's just not going to get playing time in Denver unless it's just a garbage time fourth quarter like we saw last night. I think he's going to be on the outside looking in for the rest of the season for sure.
I think that with Bol, I think they're just going to wait it out until he gets a G League team. There's not any minutes for him at all.
No.
The only time I think he does, he is able to play is in those type of situations where it's the last part because they actually added guys to his spot, his actual position, and he was already out of the rotation. So it doesn't get better. If a guy goes down, it's still not him. And that's a tough spot to be in. But also he has to understand he's young, and it'll come eventually, just not right now.
Yeah, how he responds to that, just from the sort of engagement standpoint, is going to dictate, I think, if there's a future year in Denver. Otherwise, he's an obvious candidate to, I think, be moved just later on.
Right.
Yeah, maybe this summer. Betting implications.
Yeah, I mean,
you said when you walked in here and when you walked into the studio this morning that the Nuggets championship odds went up.
Yeah, from 26-1 to 20-1. They haven't changed. I think they're still fifth shortest odds to win a championship, but that's a significant swing right there based on the Aaron Gordon move alone. I wonder if that will continue to shift in the Nuggets' favor, considering that, Lakers, Clippers Clippers do add Rajon Rondo. They got rid of Lou Will. I don't know if you guys missed that.
That's a good
While
move.
you were on
Clippers needed a point guard.
badly, and they've been like searching for a point guard, and it also gives minutes away from Reggie Jackson. So I think that really does help them.
And playoff Rondo's real. It's a thing.
It's a real thing.
If he can shoot the way he did in the Western Conference Finals, watch.
I hate it every second.
But what Andre just alluded to is what I would do is on DraftKings, I would buy Nuggets right now at whatever you got it at, and it's gonna get closer. I just feel like it's just gonna keep getting closer, and they're gonna give you a buyout, and then you take the buyout once it gets close,
Right.
or even after the first round, you take the buyout because I think the Nuggets, especially with the window, the Lakers are hurt, Brooklyn's banged up.
Right, Jazz won't last forever.
Everyone's banged up right now, so you take it right now, and then you get that buyout, but you got to hold until it's like a real time, the right time, not Adam Meyer's time, and then you actually like pull out.
Yeah, you guys are gonna think I'm
advice.
absolutely crazy, but just kind of talking about the rotation. Here's a combination I want to see.
Yeah, lay it on us.
I want to see Jamal Murray,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Porter Jr.,
Okay,
Aaron Gordon.
I'm with it.
Nikola Jokic, and JaVale McGee on the
that
floor
would be fun.
at the same time. More specifically, I just want to see some JaVale McGee, Nikola Jokic minutes.
Yes, agreed.
That for sure.
There's some viral content, like, potentially.
There's some viral content potentially, and I just want to see Yoke with a 7-footer next to him.
Yes.
And people forget, like, the Jokic and Kenneth Faried frontcourt duo was elite offensively. The Jokic-Mason Plumlee frontcourt duo was even very good offensively.
Right.
Look, the Nuggets are a really good offensive team, but I just kind of want to see what JaVale McGee, the threat he could provide in that dunker spot with Jokic operating from the elbow, from the top of the key. I want to see what a 7-footer that's a lob threat like McGee, how that impacts the backside of a defense if he's a threat at the rim.
To me,
I just want to see that. Not a ton. I don't want the Nuggets for that to be their go-to lineup. I just want to see that a couple minutes here and there.
How likely do you think it'd be? How many minutes do you think that?
Adam
that
Mar is chiming in here to see you will never see that lineup.
Yeah, I want to see how many minutes do you like project that lineup to be together?
I want to see it like one possession a game,
Let's go.
2 possessions a game.
Let's go. I love it. I mean, JaVale should
That's
have
very often.
JaVale should have an on-court, supervisor at all times, either Jokic or Facu holding his hand anytime he's on the court.
Yeah,
just catching lobs, blocking shots, catching.
I just want to see it
Sounds
like
good
once. Just want to see it once.
I'm with you, Harrison.
Thank you.
I want like 3 minutes a game out of this. I hate that Adam from afar is raining on your parade.
I know, like, there are on the court implications, but I just like small actual McGee take. I'm super down to have a sort of lovable goofball type come into this team in this market. I think Denver, it's not a big personality locker room. We don't get a lot from these guys, or at least with us. And I just think it's going to be fun to add a guy who's transparent, open, and a good time, like JaVale McGee appears to be.
Yeah, and it also give the Nuggets life. Just like we don't see a lot of the Nuggets, and you don't see the fun side of them. There was moments that you would see flashes and things like that, but he's like an actual like jovial guy that people like get around, and they're open and they're fun, and he's a fun guy, and he's goofy, but that's okay. Like that's like a personality trait. That's what he chooses, and he embraces it, and I think that's great. To put into a Nuggets locker room, that there's a lot of quiet guys and guys that are not as open. So I'm excited for that run.
Yeah.
And he's won some championships. So I think he's found the right balance in goofiness. He knows what's appropriate in a championship locker room, and maybe when he needs to shut up.
It's a good take.
No, I think that's a great point, because JaVale McGee, and I think we should just kind of talk about him a little bit, because we haven't spent much time on him, but it's another addition that Denver made today, of course. And JaVale McGee, like you said, Dre, 3-time NBA champion, won it with the Lakers, won it with the Warriors.
Right.
So this guy has played in tons of high leverage games before. He knows how to handle himself in those situations. He's not going to be scared off by the moment, which I think would still be like a concern if you're trying to play an Isaiah Hartenstein in those situations. He's not going to, be timid. And I think Malone is going to be able to trust him in a way he wasn't able to trust Hartenstein. just because McGee's been there
100%.
before. He's a veteran.
It's a funny thing to say. but
He's
it's-
played around a
that's
lot
crazy.
of different types of players. He knows his role. He's
Yeah.
played with great players before.
100%.
You know, he's played with Steph Curry. He's played with like
LeBron.
a LeBron.
Yeah.
So has that experience on big stages, on really good teams, which the Nuggets are. So I think he kind of fits into that super low usage role. That Denver was looking for.
And then also it's like the Nuggets have young guys, and the idea is the person that they go to is Paul Millsap, who didn't really play on teams that were like that or be around other good guys. You know, like his best team was the
Right,
Hawks
that
or
Hawks
something,
team.
like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Hawks team.
Right.
And there's not much you get out of that. But when you could go to Javale McGee and say, like, what was Steph doing before games, like to get through his like shooting slumps, or how dedicated of a shooter really is he? Like, is he doing to his game? And then you also have LeBron James. Like, you could ask like how LeBron James really is, and how he's like how much work he's putting in, and the things that he has to do, and then try to add that and emulate that like type of things. Those are big things to have. Like, so I think that it's really great that that's happening. And also, thank you, Zamora King. Thank you.
What do you say?
What?
He gave us a super chat, and I have to appreciate
we
that.
appreciate you,
Yeah.
Zamora.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, for Nuggets fans who are watching this and who remember JaVale McGee from his time in Denver, I mean, it wasn't the fondest of memories, but he's a much different player and person now than he was back then. I mean, JaVale McGee's 33 years old now. He's a veteran. He's won championships. He's not the 24, 25-year-old kid that he was in Denver way back when. He's in a much different stage of his career. He's in a much different stage of his life now.
Yep. And then we have this guy, Eric Weedham. Some guy, not that important, but he's pretty down on JaVale McGee, and I'm not down on him. And the reason that I'm not so down on him is because when you think about the past that he did have, the idea was it's similar to Andre Iguodala. When they came in, they were in to give you a lot of minutes and to be the guy.
Right.
With that, like, comes more minutes. If you do anything for too long, you're gonna start seeing those flaws. And they found like a niche of like not being the guy or the guy that you're like focused on. When you're in a spot to be the backup and not a lot of minutes, and you could just like perfect your craft and do things in small portions, you don't see all of those like the bad that comes with them. And I think that JaVale McGee has been doing that lately because he's not the guy as he was when Eric became a fan.
It's true, and I also think they won't be too JaVale reliant. I think he fits in this.
Yeah, it's a really small
at
dose.
large.
Yeah, like how much is
Big
JaVale McGee going to
rotation.
play? 15 minutes at the most? At the absolute most? I think on a lot of nights he'll maybe play 5 to 10 minutes. On some nights he won't even play.
Yeah.
So it's a super low usage role.
Look, I think if this move happens on its own, you shrug your shoulders. But happening in combination with the Gordon move, you think, man, they addressed two needs, and it's going to help. I mean, you want to be careful not to overstate the McGee stuff. Like, this is a backup center, and he's not exactly the reason those teams won the rings, but he is a guy who's in a different headspace than he was last time he was in Denver.
Yeah.
I just wanted to defend myself here. JaVale McGee, good player, has acute asthma, which was the issue when he played in Denver before.
Oh, no.
The altitude has not changed here in Denver.
Oh, no.
I think he's a fine addition. Like, anything's better than Hart, but like, I don't understand. I mean, I'm not going to get worked up over it. I can't
Poor
imagine
Dev
him
over
playing a ton of minutes at the backup five. Dev, let's do the show like this every single time.
Dev, do you like
Dev,
that?
do you want to get a 1-bedroom apartment, just you and me?
No.
Oh, a studio? A studio?
No.
Another reason why I think JaVale McGee was brought to Denver is to compete with the Lakers' length.
Yep.
And if you think back to that playoff series last year, the Lakers had so much length. They had Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard. Now they have Marc Gasol, and that's really it. But there's talk that they're going to bring in Andre Drummond. He just got bought out from Cleveland. I'd be surprised if the Lakers did not bring in Andre Drummond. So what that means is the Lakers are back to having pretty significant length.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the Nuggets roster before JaVale McGee, it was Nikola Jokic and like there's really no length around him. They had Isaiah Hartenstein. I don't think you think of him as somebody with like a ton of length, shot blocking ability at the rim. JaVale McGee gives them a ton of length, and he gives them a ton of length to compete with the Lakers in a potential series, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, you can throw him in with Rudy, give him 5 minutes against Gobert from time to time. There's some matchups in the West he makes sense. Other matchups, you know, with the Clips, just play mostly Zubac. Do you need him that much? Maybe, maybe not. But, you know, maybe some Ibaka minutes he can get. You know, so you can scatter it. But I think he's a useful rotation piece when, come playoff time, Hardenstein hadn't proved that he was going to earn any rotation minutes in the playoffs. So to upgrade that way, I'd say that's significant.
And look, it can only help, I think.
Totally.
That's how I view it.
Exactly.
How do we rank the Nuggets in the West right now? Can we rank the Western Conference contenders right now?
I do want to start by saying this. We can run through those 4 teams that are in the standings and then, you know, in theory on paper ahead of Denver right now. Did any of them get significantly better? The Clippers, I think, small W in getting Rondo. But for the most part, I think from Denver's perspective, you go, okay, we upgraded or at least took that swing more so than any of those teams. That's fair, right?
Obviously. Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly the case.
Undoubtedly.
So, well,
I mean, the Nuggets made the biggest move of the day, in my opinion. I mean, Victor Oladipo, like, yeah, whatever. Aaron Gordon is going to make a much bigger impact in Denver.
yeah, and even the Vucevic trade. I mean, that's small potatoes. What scared me was the Jazz made a small move, and there was talk of, this might be a move to clear space for a Lowry. That didn't happen, I think, is massive.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz, Suns. I mean, how do we rank those teams in terms of, like, our confidence rankings going up against them in a playoff series?
I think that you have the exact same confidence that you had last year with the exact same teams. But with this, you feel like you're a little bit closer to the Lakers, and also there's that small window, like you smell blood, you've seen blood, and you're like trying to get closer to them because right now LeBron's not playing, Anthony Davis is not playing. Yeah. Who's to say like that they're going to continue to stay healthy when they get back? I think that like their cohesion and their like chemistry and things are just going to like take a hit. And then you have the Nuggets who are relatively healthy and they're going to be getting like better and they have the MVP right now and it's a confidence level. Then also Jamal's going to like become himself and that we know what he does in these type of situations. But then you add the Suns to the mix who were really good in the bubble, but they didn't make the playoffs. Yeah. But I mean, you look at them as they're still the Phoenix Suns. Like you say they're the Suns, and you feel confident going against the Suns. You feel confident against the Jazz, Clippers. You just came back on, and you feel like you're pretty even with that team. The Lakers is the only one that you still worry about. They're the defending champs. They have LeBron James.
Sure.
So I think that you feel like that's still your competition and who you have to go after.
I do think with the Jazz, it actually is a slightly more dangerous matchup without Gary. I mean, Gordon helps the whole operation. There's no doubt, but sometimes it is about a stud individual defender on a stud individual offensive player. And that's what won that series. So that's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
definitely.
Luke and Donovan just became a lot harder to defend.
And Dame too, man, if it's like a 4-5. So there's something to that. But I still think like the Suns have more to prove in the playoffs than the Nuggets at this point. I just think that's fair. However good they look right now, Nuggets would have the best player in that series. They match up better with the Lakers and the Clippers. And I just think that's the bottom line. So if you were hoping to see that done, they're in a better position. I think they're one of the top 4 teams out west with a little more matchup versatility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the Jazz, they didn't have Bogdanovich in the playoffs last year. And I think now Aaron Gordon is a pretty solid response to that.
No,
that's a matchup where I really like
Gordon.
Gordon.
Because if it were Millsap,
Right. It's just like BI. There were just some matchups for the Nuggets this season where the lack of Jeremy Grant it was like, God, we're just throwing bodies. Like Millsap doesn't have it. MPJ's too like raw and inconsistently. We're just like dead in the water. Now Gordon is like such a valuable piece to throw at in some of those matchups.
Yeah, he's just the guy who can guard so many different players.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned Luka Doncic earlier. Aaron Gordon guarded Luka Doncic really, really well in a matchup earlier this season.
That's
Doncic
nuts.
had 20 points in a game on 7 of 20 shooting. I think Dallas won. I mean, they beat Orlando. It's not too impressive. But Aaron Gordon had a very impressive defensive showing, I thought, when I went back and watched the film on Luka Doncic in that series. So
That's crazy.
he can guard him. But I think Vogt's point stands that when you think about Damian Lillard, I don't know what's going to happen with the Warriors, but like Steph Curry potentially, if they were to sneak into the playoffs, Donovan Mitchell, I don't know if Gordon can guard those guys. And in fact, I lean towards that he's not as effective on those guys as he is on like a Doncic or like a Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. Those are the guys he seems more suited to guard rather than the super small point guards. So,
Yeah, and also,
that's a big question.
I don't think that that's his job either, though. Like,
No.
that's not what
Right.
he's in here to guard LeBron's and Luka's and the
Totally.
bigger guys. So you shouldn't actually put him in those situations where he has to. That's where it becomes important to have Dozier. That's where Jamal Murray he's talked so much about how he wants to improve as a defender, and here goes your chance. And I think that he does show up on that end in these playoffs. But that's why you brought over Campazzo and all those things. So I think that there's answers. You just have to see them get put to test. Because even with that Jazz team, I know a lot of people would say, what if we don't get that same Jamal from the bubble? But at the same time, maybe the Jazz don't get that same Donovan Mitchell who went just as berserk as Jamal did.
Totally.
So with that, I think that you have answers. They just have to put themselves in it and apply themselves to defend better.
Yeah.
But you also got better defensively because you do have guys that at least, because there's no way that you stop Luka. There's no way you stop LeBron, but you at least slow them down. You have the answer for that. And then the other things kind of answer themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just going to be a combination of PJ and Facu. I mean, let's not forget that Facu can make some stuff happen on defense if he can stay out of foul trouble.
Still curious to see how that works in an NBA playoff environment, but you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. He had. They weren't lying to us when they said there was defensive prowess there.
Well, and then, I mean, we're a ways away, but you wonder how MPJ can one day factor into this with his length and athleticism to guard some wings in this league, you know? And but yeah, we're a ways away. Also, LaMarcus Aldridge bought out.
So
Interesting.
Drummond and Aldridge, probably the biggest names that will that will move.
So all the talk has been Andre Drummond to the Lakers. The Clippers also opened up a roster spot, which I don't know where that stands now after the Rondo thing, what the parameters of that deal were. But all the talk has also been Aldridge to the Miami Heat. That's been the chatter.
Right, who just
And he was
going to
head to the Heat
and got
after-
rid of 3 vets.
After getting bought out.
Right.
So we'll see.
He'd fit in nicely in Olynyk's spot that just got cleared out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, if you got
Start
questions in the chat, let's hear them. If you want to give us a super chat and get your question to the top of the line, I want to take some questions over, the next however many minutes that we're on for, because I think we can keep going. I mean, we got a lot of people tuning in. We got news still coming down the wire. More angles that we can get to on Aaron Gordon and JaVale McGee as well.
I'm either going to do this out loud with you guys or inside my head.
Let's do it out loud.
So let's just keep hanging out, right? Screw it.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing we didn't talk about at all, don't know how much conversation this warrants. We touched on it briefly. Any chance in hell Gary Clark gets minutes on the Denver Nuggets?
I mean, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no. I don't think he plays.
Bless you, Eric.
Do you have something to say over there, D-line?
Wow. Forceful.
Yeah. So Gary Clark, Gary Clark has some of the qualities that Torrey Craig had, I think. He's a good defender. He's big. He's built. He's strong. He's like 6'6" with a Torrey Craig body. I really do think that a big reason why Torrey Craig played so much for Denver is just that they didn't have anybody better to play.
Yeah.
And I know he was playing ahead of Michael Porter a lot, but I really think a lot of that was probably overblown looking back on it.
Yeah, if Thrill's healthy.
Yeah, it was true. But now they have Gordon to fill that role. Having Gordon here,
Right. Yeah.
I know you can see in your mind Michael Malone likes those defensive minded guys who don't need their own offense. But I just don't see it with Gary Clark. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Also, there's no there's not enough time, not a lot of runway. We're not really trying to figure out any new things, right? So a lot would have to happen for him to even get a chance. So
Yeah, I think it's funny they got rid of a Gary and brought in another Gary.
yeah,
Pretty weird. But with Gary, like Gary Clark, he's like a two-time defensive like player of the year for his conference in college. He's a G League champion. Like he's had success. But I do not think that he like is in the rotation.
No.
I don't think he
Right.
does much. And I'm actually glad that somebody else brought up the point about Torrey Craig. I do think that he had perfect timing. Everything about
really
his career
did.
went so perfect because if there's injuries, like you guys said, he doesn't have an impact.
Right.
He doesn't showcase like himself. So that was a perfect situation that just kind of happened. But a lot of it was just like brought up and hype, and you don't need that like right now. I mean, you need a defender, of course. But Gary Clark is not that guy for that. I think maybe at times they'll try to see what he has, and he'll be able to like just give you a body. But I mean, that's not someone that is part of the rotation,
It's not high
especially with the
priority.
other guys they have.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hold on real quick, Kel. Gary Clark played 18 minutes for the Magic this year per game. I don't think he's going to crack the rotation in Denver.
Well, let's hope not. If he does, it means some disastrous injury
Yeah,
luck
that's
has occurred from now until then.
Yeah, let's get to this super chat. Josh Moore, does this only give us a 2-year championship window? If it doesn't work out, do they blow up the team and bail on our core?
Man, this is part of what I love about this move. So first of all, with regards to the 2-year thing, Aaron Gordon is still under contract next year.
Yeah.
So like everyone's thinking Jeremy Grant. Let's say the Nuggets go back to the Western Conference Finals. Ton of momentum. They lose in 7. You're not going right away into free agency and wondering if Aaron Gordon walks,
Yeah.
right? You can carry some of that momentum with you.
Yeah.
They also, do they have bird rights to Aaron Gordon now? They do, right? They should be.
Should be
I
acquired
think
through
so,
this.
yeah.
Sorry if I
yeah.
just. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much minutia. I don't know it all. but-
That's
yeah,
also
totally.
just so far in the distance.
Sure.
I know, it does.
That's
Seem like
true.
forever
But
ago.
that's the thing about this 3 is I think you can take multiple attempts. So if you're assuming that Jokic is sticking around, you've got Murray and MPJ sticking around, I think you can try again. And I think this is a package that A, gives you that extra year, but B, you didn't leverage too much. Is RJ part of the future? Sure, but that was that next wave. And it's not like a complete depleted the chest.
Yeah. What's also beautiful about the Aaron Gordon contract is he's obviously under contract for next year. The Nuggets also have this Michael Porter Jr. extension coming up.
Mm-hmm.
He is eligible to sign his rookie extension starting after this season ends up until the first game of next season. So next offseason into training camp, that's when Michael Porter Jr. can sign his rookie extension. But the thing about it, and if you remember, this is the same way that Jamal Murray's extension happened, that extension won't kick in until the year after because he's going to be in the 4th year of his rookie deal next season. So what that means is Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., those like deals are going to line up. Michael Porter Jr.'s rookie extension, which is going to be very hefty. Maybe it's a max. I don't know. That deal is going to start right when Aaron Gordon becomes a free agent. So the Nuggets have the ability now to see what that Porter extension is going to be and then be able to determine if they're going to re-sign Eric Gordon while already knowing what Porter's contract looks like. So I think the cap dynamic set up really well for Denver in that regard.
Yeah, they line up perfectly.
Yeah.
And the fact that Gordon's contract lines up with Gary's contract, of course, is ideal. And then, worst case scenario, you sign MPJ, Gordon wants out, you can still front angle a sign and trade.
Right.
We've seen teams in like cap hell in these tough spots be able to maneuver that kind of stuff before.
When you have those 3, you've got the hardest first, second, and third layer.
Yeah.
And, maybe things don't fall into place as perfectly as they are now, but you'll get more than one chance if you think Yoke's sticking around.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Josh's question, the Nuggets are going to have a really long championship window regardless of what Aaron Gordon does. If he's here past this contract, if he is not here past this contract, because they're going to have Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. under contract for a long time.
Exactly.
Jamal's not going anywhere. Nikola Jokic, I've got to think, is going to sign a supermax deal next summer. And Michael Porter Jr., the Nuggets have the ability to really lock him up and keep him in Denver for a long time on this rookie extension.
Their
soon.
choice, at
So,
least. Yeah.
the core is going to be here forever. And if Aaron Gordon works out, I've got to think he'll be a piece of that for a while.
It would be a great top 4, like Adam was saying. I mean, I do think there's the ifs. We'll see. But if they manifest, I think this is a 4 you can say, oh, we can make this work. If Gordon is going to fall into an affordable price range.
Yeah, a 4 plus Monty too. That kind of core 5 to be building this franchise around. You think of the offensive prowess those 5 could have.
Yeah.
If they can just figure out, some little fits defensively, man, is that an exciting core to build.
Is there another Gary that comes through eventually, right? And is that guy, like if or as you move off Barton eventually, do you find that defensive stud at the 2? Yep. And if it's that guy around, along those 4, you're cruising.
Yeah.
Cooking with hot grease.
100%.
Right. Some more super chats to get to. This one's just a comment, but if someone could read it.
Let's see. Super chat from Julian.
All I gotta
say is in Tim Connolly we trust. Amen.
Yep.
Hey, you know what, dude? This front office had earned the benefit of the doubt prior to today.
Sure.
But can we give them like another year? Like, even if things go awry, can we just give them like 6 months before we freak out? They're doing fine.
No, I mean, Matt said it when he was on with us. People around the league are saying, this is what the Nuggets got Aaron Gordon for.
Yeah.
Gary Harris, who's barely played this year. RJ Hampton, who's like as raw of a rookie as possible. And a first-round pick that's going to be coming from a really good team. So it's going to be a late first-round pick at that. That's what they got Aaron Gordon for? No, I think this is a great trade by the Nuggets front office.
Yeah, last night when it first popped up on our screen to conclude the show, there was real excitement because I'm like, if that's all that you have to give up, no matter what, the Nuggets are doing it. That's just what they're going to do, especially because it had Gary Harris's name on it. And then also you didn't have to give up too much. You don't give up any part of your actual core or guys that are playing right now. And that's just an easy option to just get someone that you guys have wanted for so long, and also that just answers so many questions that the team has. So that's a very, very easy option that happened, and for them to get it for that low, that's where the steal comes into place.
Right, because you're really talking about 2 mid-20s first rounders and a contract that was worse than the contract you're inheriting and had just become kind of an albatross of a contract. So to get off that contract without ever giving up a first rounder in the 20s, shoot, that's a really good deal.
There's if you're looking at the Venn diagram, all in, stay the course. They found the middle, I think.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
All right, next super chat coming in from Dylan.
Was the Lonzo Ball chatter real?
From Adam Mares, yes, he was interested, just in case anyone was wondering.
So I had heard that the Nuggets really liked Lonzo and had inquired about him. I don't know how real it ever got, though. I don't know how real it ever got. And apparently, I have a feeling based on the fact that New Orleans held on to Lonzo in the end, that the offers really were not blowing them out of the water. Because a big reason why I felt like it was always a very slim chance that the Nuggets were going to acquire Lonzo was because he's going to be a free agent after this season. And even though he is going to be a restricted free agent and whatever team has him can match whatever offer sheet he can go get, that still comes with a lot of risk. Right. So if you're a team acquiring Lonzo, you're not going to want to give up a lot to get him. And I've got to think that Denver really never offered enough. And it seems like no other team offered enough either.
Yeah.
So.
And just New Orleans and Orlando working with completely different leverage. New Orleans, they've already done their big AD trade. They've already got assets for days. So they're not going to move Lonzo unless you make it stupid for them to not move Lonzo. Orlando, man, they're in rebuild, asset acquisition mode. Aaron Gordon, 1.5 years away from his expiration. So every deadline that comes, his value is decreasing just a smidge. They had much more urgency to get this done.
And if the market looks like this now, there's also a non-zero chance they don't ever have to match an albatross offer in restricted free agency.
Right.
They might be able to keep Lonzo on a controllable deal. And then they like him alongside Zion, which they should, or they move him later in time.
It's funny. Lonzo went in 3 months from a guy that wasn't going to have a future in New Orleans to a guy who looks like the perfect running mate for Zion Williamson. That happened in 3 months.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade him.
I think it's a good move for New Orleans to keep him. Although he would have been great in Denver.
Yeah, it would have been better to send him to Denver for sure.
They have plenty of young guards I would get rid of before I would get rid of Lonzo.
Yeah. What else we got?
Next super chat's coming in from Kenneth Booker. He says, I wish we traded Barton instead of Harris were to miss his perimeter defense in the playoffs, shut or slow down Mitchell or Lillard.
I think it's a valid point. I mean, Vogt was talking about it earlier. Gary Harris changed that Utah series with his defense coming in that game 6. They don't win that series without him.
Damn straight.
Now they don't have that just disruptive on-ball guy. I think Facu's probably the closest to that, but he fouls a lot. Yeah. He's so small that his size can really be taken advantage of. Totally. Gary was just so solid on the ball. So it's a loss for sure.
The only pushback is Will Barton is more available than the other guy. And I know there's been availability concerns there as well, but Gary is such a question mark at this point. So many lower body injuries. And for him to be out with the injury that he's out with no timetable for return, that's really scary. And also, how did they trade him? How did that happen? I cannot believe a team took Gary Harris right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Will's longer and a better shooter, too.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Those are just nothing to take away from what Gary did in the playoffs last year, which was masterful. But, those are the facts.
Offensively, this group could be dynamite.
Oh, of course.
But I think that Kenneth's concern is valid.
Yeah. And another thing we probably have to bring up when talking about Gary Harris's defense, the 2019 playoffs, when the Nuggets, I don't want to say shut down, but really limited Damian Lillard. Do you remember that series against the Blazers? It was CJ McCollum who won that series for Portland. It was not Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard had a terrible game 7. And that's because Gary Harris played unbelievable defense that series.
And Rodney Hood. By the way, Rodney Hood, no longer a Portland Trailblazer. Gary Trent Jr., no longer a Portland Trailblazer. They got, was it Norman Powell they got?
Yeah, Norman Powell, right.
Yeah.
Takes some weird shots, but he's a good shooter. I guess he fits into Portland in that way.
Yeah.
They're an interesting one.
We've had a bunch of questions about this, so just in general, talk about Gordon in comparison to Jeremy Grant.
Well, so different.
Yeah, they're both really good athletes, but like I was saying earlier, I feel like Gordon knows how to use his athleticism a little more than Jeremy Grant. Like Jeremy Grant was never really that lob threat around the rim like Aaron Gordon has been before. So I think they're different in that way. Yeah. Defensively, I think they're similar in some aspects. Like Jeremy Grant did a great job at making life difficult for Kawhi Leonard, just kind of really staying attached to him around screens, just always being there, always having a hand up in his face. Yeah. I think Gordon can do those similar things as well. Gordon's stronger though. He's bigger. He's a better rebounder than Jeremy Grant, which I think is a big thing that Gordon brings to the table that Grant kind of struggled in. Shooting, Jeremy Grant's probably a little better shooter than Aaron Gordon. I don't necessarily...
As far as spot-up shooting, right?
Yeah.
Off the dribble, Gordon probably significantly better, though. Or better.
I have to look that up, actually, across their careers.
That's like the one big drawback for Gordon, I think. I think he's shooting 37% from 3 or around that, 38% from 3, but I don't really trust his shot, so that's kind of the one drawback, I think.
Yeah, in the low 40s from the field.
He is going to be like Grant in the playoffs insofar as they're going to be open. They're not going to scare defenses into sticking to them, so they're going to have to hit some open shots.
Yeah, I think with the comparing and contrasting, like to compare them both. They're both super long. They're going to give whoever they're guarding different looks. They're just with their length and athleticism. They're both super athletic. They both truly do believe that they're superstars. And you have to have that type of confidence, especially in the NBA. But when you want to go through the differences, Aaron Gordon is a better athlete, and what that's crazy to say just because of how good Jeremy Grant really was. And I think that's why fans gravitated towards him, is because besides Kenneth Faried, who was really limited in his game, the Nuggets didn't get that type of athleticism. They didn't get a guy that could just go up and dunk the ball and be able to just do so many things. but you get that in Aaron Gordon. And I think that there's going to be a lot of moments that fans are saying, damn, like, I can't believe that he was that good because he was with the Magic. We say that we don't trust his shot and things of that nature, but like at the same time, a lot of those games, the Magic are not winning. Like they're losing games. They're forcing shots up. He's the second option, so he's getting defended in a different way that he's not going to see when he's with the Nuggets. There's going to be a whole lot of he already talked about it. One of the biggest things that stood out for him was the passing in that game and how everyone rotated the ball and got everyone involved. He hasn't been a part of that before. So I think that he's going to be super duper excited to be in that situation because even if you go back to like Arizona days in college, he's always been the guy. So like to not have the attention of everyone every single time, I think that first off, his percentage is going to get up. Like I think that he's going to be the new toy for Jokic and his teammates. They're going to have fun. I think he's going to be like in a more fun situation where they're winning games and he's like not exerting the same type of energy. Like I think that this is really, it's honestly such a slam dunk like winning opportunity for both sides that it just really like it worked.
Yeah, if he tailors his shot selection, like we've talked about many times, embracing the role, in theory, this efficiency goes up. I'm sure it's difficult to be efficient when you're the top guy in Orlando.
Yes.
He's a better rebounder than Jeremy Grant, I think, across his career. I know Grant's rebounding numbers are up in Detroit, ghastly outside of that, terrible in Denver.
Yeah.
The other thing with Gordon, and maybe this is just an arising property from this year in Orlando. They needed him to be a playmaker more by default. And so he's up to 4.2 assists per game. Look, he's not running anyone's offense, but he's a sneaky good passer. And so, like, yeah, you're not asking him to play the Jokic role, but keeping the ball moving, keeping the offense flowing, making quick decisions on the roll. Like, Gordon's underrated in that regard.
I think that's a good point because Gordon was like an initiator in Orlando. He was a guy who had the ball in his hands a lot, a playmaker. I think primarily he's going to be a finisher in Denver. He's going to be a play finisher. He's going to be a guy who, and again, a lot of this comes down to him and how he's going to change his game and go from a number 1 option to a number 4 option on the starting lineup. But ideally, he's a guy that's going to be playing off of Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and Michael Porter Jr. He's going to be getting his offense off of them.
Yes.
So I think that's just going to be a big change that he's going to have to undergo. But I said this before. Obviously, they traded for him on the postgame show the other night. Life is never going to be easier for Aaron Gordon than it's going to be this upcoming season. He's had to do like he's had a really tough job in Orlando just trying to be the guy. Now he's going to get so many easy looks, man. So many easy looks around the rim from Nikola Jokic. So many just wide open jumpers off of defenses collapsing on Jokic, off Jamal Murray, on Michael Porter Jr. He is going to have such an easy time getting easy baskets if he wants to. And that's why a huge part of this is just going to be up to him.
Yeah, I've become enamored with Zion Williamson this season because I think the real genius of Zion and how incredibly efficient he is as a basketball player. Aaron Gordon could be 95% of what Zion Williamson is efficiency-wise on offense.
Wow. I don't know about that.
I mean, he's that kind of
but
he's a better shooter than Zion right now, and he can get those kind of shots at the rim. There's just so much. He's become a little too jumper happy in Orlando, which again, he has to be the man. Spaces are closing down. And what really scares me is like you look at the biggest game he had this month, 38 points against the Nets. A lot of that's coming off some mid-range, like high post stuff, which I would just abandon entirely. If he's efficient and just takes those open threes and then gets to the rim and the dunker spot, he can really be an ultra efficient offensive weapon.
Man, you know who he can learn from? Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
Get some tips.
Yeah.
Cut hard to the rim.
Yeah.
You know, run hard in transition. And just like what Porter's learning pretty quickly is you do not need to be on the ball to eat in this offense. So
I think what is also something we should point out is, look, there's going to be an adjustment period for sure because Aaron Gordon's never played in a Nuggets type of offense. Like if you think about the Orlando Magic offense, it's very different. And we even saw this a couple days ago when the Nuggets and Magic played. It's very different from a Nuggets offense. And I've got to think that Gordon was playing in that game and was like, man, this would be a fun system to play in.
Yeah, like who's the best facilitator he's ever played with? Jameer Nelson? Like in his
I don't even know.
talking about
He
Aaron
was
Gordon?
on those teams.
Yeah.
Vogt.
Yeah, Vucevic, maybe.
So-
I don't think he's not with Jameer Nelson.
Yeah,
at
he
all.
was after that.
like Jameer Nelson.
right. That's the
already off
Hedo.
of the
Yeah,
Nuggets.
right. Yeah, so life's about to get a lot better for Aaron Gordon.
Yeah. So it's going to be an adjustment because he's never played in that type of offense. He's going from a number 1 option to a number 4 option with the starting unit.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to change his game, but also it's going to be on the Nuggets to get him involved early. It's going to be on the Nuggets to run maybe a couple easy lob plays to open up first quarters to really get him into a game and into a rhythm. It's going to be on that. And I think knowing Nikola Jokic and also knowing the mentality that Jamal Murray's had this year, he's had a mentality of, all right, I'm going to look to get guys going. I'm going to look to be a classic point guard at times and not always just look for my offense, look for my scoring. I'm going to look to set others up. I think that's going to translate really well into just helping Gordon get comfortable. So, look, the ingredients are there for him to be the piece that the Nuggets have been missing.
Yeah.
It's now just going to be up to him and up to the Nuggets to make the fit work.
2 more people whose work is cut out for them now. Michael Malone, obviously. Head coach, he's got to make this work short runway. Another guy is Jokic, who, he's made a lot of strides as a leader this year. There's a new challenge in front of him now. If it doesn't work right away with Gordon, is Jokic frustrated? Is he vocal?
Right.
Is he close with Gordon? So these are things that, it's new tests for him to pass, and we'll see. But he can have a lot of control over how turbulent this period is, as the emotional leader and the on-the-court leader of this team.
The schedule the Nuggets have, I think, works out in their favor since, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. I don't know when Gordon and Gary Clark, can't forget about Gary Clark, I don't know when they're going to be available. I would just guess that they're not available for this New Orleans game tomorrow. The trade still has to go through. I don't think it's official yet.
I believe it has already been said that they are not going to be available for the next game.
Right. So I would
Shame.
look at Sunday
Be a great
at
match.
home in Denver against the Atlanta Hawks as the potential debut, the likely debut for Aaron Gordon.
That's so exciting, man.
So
I think
coming
I'm
up
going
in
down to the arena. You're
3
not
days.
going this time, Harrison.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, now I'm actually going to tap myself in.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
Atlanta Hawks with the return of Lou Williams, too.
Hello, Will.
That's right. By
Yeah.
the way, some folks were wondering it was Lou Williams in the Rondo deal. Yep.
Yeah, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games from now, Gary Harris comes back to Denver with the Orlando Magic.
The return.
What if he just comes out and he's healthy and he plays? I'm like, what's happening?
It's great.
Like
Dunks
Blake
3
Griffin
times.
and James Harden. He's just like dunking it
Blake
all over
Griffin
the place.
hasn't dunked in like years, and then all of a sudden the first basket he gets is a dunk. Like, come on, man, we know what's happening here.
Any closing thoughts? We're at the 2-hour mark.
Hey, they did it. They went for it. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. But remember that there was a large camp of people who were banging on the drums for them to get something done today,
Right.
and they did.
Mine is again, we are not excited about anybody having to like switch. We see a lot of players that are like really sad about it. Gary Harris was a player that everybody loved. Jamal Murray, Monte Morris already reached out. I feel like every single player will reach out, and he'll be a part of this like organization. And when we play Juancho and Gomez here, we play against all these other teams, people like really do respect them, and there's like a real brotherhood. So we're not like overlooking that aspect of like the human component of everything that happened. But we're also like, we cover the Nuggets. The Nuggets got better today, and that's something to think about. The guys that are there, those are the guys that are there. Like, embrace it or not, these are the guys that are there, and the Nuggets are in a better spot, and go after a championship, baby.
Yeah. I mean, Gary Harris is definitely going to be missed. If you guys go to Jamal Murray's Instagram, he penned like a super thoughtful farewell to Gary Harris there. I think I've seen a couple more tweets from Nuggets players about Gary Harris over the last couple hours. I mean, look, this is Gary Harris, the original Mr. Nugget, of course, the longest tenured player on Denver's roster, one of the 2 founding fathers, him and Will Barton, of this Nuggets team. Gary Harris was the Denver Nuggets for so long. But like I said at the top of the show, and we were talking about throughout, this is the next step. They're still on the we don't skip steps mantra. They're still on that because Gary Harris's time, I mean, it was just kind of up here. You could make the case that it was up, and now Denver moved to the next step, which is making that trade that puts them all in for a championship. And that's what they did. They've had the chance to make these trades many times before. Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler. I don't think it was going to be right to make any of those trades in the past. I don't think it was the right time. Never thought it was the time to sell on Jamal Murray.
No.
I never thought it was necessarily the right take to bring any of those guys in. This one I do agree with. This is the right move at the right time. So everything's lining up for Denver right now.
Wins in, I'm in, baby. Let's do it.
I mean, well said. And, not every step puts the same amount of strain on your nerves and muscles, or your heart. This step, a little harder to go through, but I think the right step.
It was time.
Yeah.
It was time.
Yeah.
We want to close out the show by replaying a segment from the DNBA show over the summer. We had Ariana Lenarski on, who, if you guys don't know, is a tarot card reader who predicts the future.
Yes.
She predicts the future, and she has predicted, I don't even know if she did, the cards predicted.
The card, that's
everything
it. The
that has
cards.
happened in this Nuggets season. The Michael Porter Jr. Tower. I forget what the card was for Gary Harris, but
The 10 of Cups.
the 10, the 10 of clubs.
Cups.
10 of cups.
I know it sounds like we said it wrong, but we didn't.
The 10
no.
of cups.
That's terrible. Sorry.
Did the cards predict a Gary Harris trade? Some people are saying that.
Wow.
Many
But
people.
This is what Ariana said on the show over the hiatus, and we thought it would be a good time to replay it here.
We need to know to take his next right action. That's Denver Nuggets. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so he got the 10 of Cups.
The 10 of
This is-
Cups. All
This
right.
is the 10 of Cups. All 10s represent ends of cycles. It's time for Gary to move on to kind of like a new emotional situation for himself. This
A
is
trade?
Well, I don't want him to be traded. I mean, maybe I'm invested in that. But
Yeah.
this is more just like you've come to the end of this emotional cycle. It's time to move on to whatever the next phase is. And that's a good thing. There's joy there. It's not like a sad ending. You've reached some
Okay.
kind of happy ending. So what's the next chapter, basically?